Chapter 151. Behind this crimson door, the church is clearly a very important place. But none of them can get in there right now. Because the church is a short distance from the castle, and it's raining heavily, they can't cross over. The crimson door had made it very clear that they must not get wet in the rain. No one wants to test the crimson door's rules with their own life. So even if they want to go to the church, they have to find a way to avoid getting wet. Damn it, if that's the case, aren't we as good as dead? We can't even deal with the lady. If the young master's father is even stronger than her, aren't we just sitting here waiting to die? Everyone's faces gradually darkened. When Qingye glanced at Ningqiu Shui, who was silent beside her. Hey Ningqiu Shui, do you have any ideas? By now, she could tell that Ningqiu Shui was the calmest among them. The calmest person isn't necessarily the smartest, but they can think clearly. That's important. If I'm guessing correctly, the young master's father must be restricted. He's either temporarily unable to use his power, or he can't leave that church. And all of this is probably related to the butler. I'm not sure if the lady is a believer, but the butler definitely is. Ningqiu Shui said, turning back to look at everyone, gently pinching the center of his collarbone with his finger. He was reminding everyone of the crucifix pendant the butler wore. At this moment, Su Xiao suddenly noticed something. He let out a curious, huh, and walked over to the lady's desk. There was a messy pile of empty photo albums here, but they weren't completely empty. There were some marks on them, seemingly taken from their rooms earlier. Of course, Su Xiao's attention wasn't on these albums. He spread all the albums out and found a special notebook hidden underneath them. Su Xiao took out the notebook and opened it. Everyone immediately gathered around. However, when they saw the contents of the notebook, they were all shocked, because on the notebook, there was only one line of blood-red text. I knew you would come. Knew you would come? Who is you here? Could it be them? Thinking this, a chill ran down everyone's spine. Could it be what we're thinking? Wang Xiao, a girl from Guangyong's team, trembled uncontrollably. I'm afraid it is exactly what we're thinking. Su Xiao rubbed his fingers uneasily, his expression quite serious. He continued flipping through the notebook, but every page inside only had that same line of blood-red text. I knew you would come. Flipping to the back, Su Xiao's movements clearly became more frantic. How can this be? Could it be? Could this be a trap? Just as everyone was stunned, a violent and dense vibration echoed from the hallway outside the room. What's going on? I don't know, let's go check it out. They immediately returned to the hallway lined with portraits of the lady in black. Everyone was startled to see the portraits that had initially hung on the hallway walls, now shaking violently, slamming repeatedly against the walls, with a large amount of water seeping out from behind the paintings, spreading across the floor and flowing toward them. Junlu Yuan and the gaunt man by the window at the end of the hallway both wore grim expressions, shouting loudly at them. Run! Without hesitation, everyone scrambled toward the end of the hallway. As they reached the window, a pale white face suddenly appeared there. It was the black-robed lady. Her blood-red lips twisted into a mad and ferocious smile as she pressed herself against the outside of the window, staring intently at everyone. Liao Jian, who was running last, had his neck grabbed by the black-robed lady. No, he screamed in terror, but the black-robed lady's strength was immense, and Liao Jian's struggles were futile. Seeing the black-robed lady about to strike him with her scythe, at that critical moment, Su Xiao suddenly charged forward, holding a large pair of pruning shears, and stabbed them fiercely into the black-robed lady's eye socket. Thud! The lady howled in pain, letting out a bone-chilling roar, growing even more frenzied. But it was this attack that made her let go. Run! Su Xiao grabbed Liao Jian's hand and fled with the others. They quickly reached the staircase, but this time, the butler did not appear. Ningqiu Shui's heart sank. Yesterday, when they were being chased by the lady, it was the butler's appearance that made her give up the pursuit. But today, the butler was gone. Did this mean that even if they ran down to the third floor, they couldn't escape the lady's pursuit? This is bad. Junlu Yuan clearly realized this problem too, cursing under his breath. They turned back to look, the terrifying, tall, gaunt woman in black was already chasing them with her scythe. A dreadful aura of death, along with the bone-piercing chill of the rain, surged forward, engulfing everyone. "Split up and run!" Ningqiu Shui shouted, and everyone immediately understood, scattering as they ran down to the first floor of the castle. Only the gaunt man who had targeted Ningqiu Shui on the second morning ran up to the second floor. As he made this decision, he even felt a hint of satisfaction. The other 7 were all heading to the first floor, while he went up to the second. No matter what, the black-robed lady wouldn't come for him first. However, he hadn't run far before another terrifying thought gradually crept into his mind. What if the black-robed lady didn't go to the first floor to find the others, but came to the second floor to find him first? What should he do then? He had to know that the space on the second floor was much smaller than the first. He didn't have many places to hide. As soon as this thought appeared, it clung to him like a creeping vine. But things had already come to this. There was no turning back. Now, the important thing was to quickly find a room to hide in. The only thing that gave this man some comfort was that there was still a woman named Luo Yuxin on the second floor. Thinking of this woman, a plan formed in the man's mind. He ran to room 212 at his fastest speed, pushed the door open, then turned back to lock it. Luo Yuxin was tied up on the bed, motionless. She seemed to have given up struggling, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Seeing this woman, the corner of the gaunt man's mouth curled into a smile. Perfect. With her here, I'm much safer. Just as everyone had predicted, the black-clad lady was not stopped by the butler and directly chased down from the third floor. The scythe she dragged across the floor emitted a grating sound that made one's scalp tingle. The lady pursued step by step, but upon reaching the second floor, she did not directly chase those on the first floor. Instead, she turned, dragging her scythe, and walked toward the second floor where they were staying. Those on the first floor saw this scene and silently prayed a few seconds for that gaunt man. What do we do now? Didn't you guys escape the black-clad lady's pursuit yesterday? How did you do it? Wang Xiao's voice carried an indescribable panic, constantly urging Ningqiu Shui and the others. Why aren't you saying anything? Speak up! You were the ones who told us to go up to the third floor, and now that something's happened, you have to come up with a solution. It's hard for people to stay calm when truly facing death. Some may have experienced a few crimson doors, making their mentality stronger than the average person. But when it truly comes to life and death, they still panic like ordinary people. Wang Xiao was such a person. Faced with her urging, Ningqiu Shui shook his head. The reason the lady gave up chasing us yesterday was because the butler stopped her in time. At that time, the butler told the lady, "It's time for the church's prayers." I'm not sure if it was the butler ordering her to stop, or if that phrase made her stop. Since the black-clad lady had gone to the second floor to find the gaunt man, the 7 people on the first floor had relatively more time to discuss the dire situation before them. However, most of them were extremely anxious, the heavy pressure constantly stimulating their nerves. They knew that once the man on the second floor died, the next person the lady would kill was them. Every minute and second now was precious to them. Then let's split up first and find the butler on the first floor. He must be hiding somewhere down here, Wen Qingye suggested. At this moment, splitting up was the safer approach, because currently there was only one monster, the lady, hunting them. If all targets gathered together, everyone would face greater danger. No time to hesitate. Let's move quickly. Although they didn't know if they could find the butler in the castle, at this moment it seemed like the only way. Junlu Yuan followed Ningqiu Shui. They hadn't gone far when a familiar voice came from behind. "Brother Chu Shui, wait!" The two turned around to see Su Xiao and Liao Jian. "Why are you two here? Didn't you say you were going to find the butler?" Coming before Ningqiu Shui, Su Xiao pouted. "Find my ass, what butler is there left to find?" Wen Qingye only said that to comfort us. Yesterday, so many people on the first floor couldn't find the butler either, and in the end, he showed up on his own. This is proof enough. When the butler doesn't want to appear, no matter how hard we search, we won't find him. Ningqiu Shui looked at Su Xiao. feeling that this fake girl had a decent head on her shoulders. If we're not looking for the butler, then we should be finding a place to hide. Why come looking for us? Su Xiaoxiao's bright, big eyes darted slightly as she tugged at Ning Chushui's sleeve, her voice sweet and sticky. "Brother Chushui, you're so capable. Take me with you." Ning Chushui was a bit speechless. If Liao Jian hadn't let it slip, no one would ever guess that the delicate beauty before him was actually a man. After thinking for a moment, Ning Chushui said, "First, find a place to hide and see how things play out. I have a method that might work, but only as a last resort." Ning Chushui didn't refuse Su Xiaoxiao and Liao Jian from joining. These two weren't bad, actually. Liao Jian might be a bit dense, but thankfully he had no ill intentions and was fairly obedient. Hearing this, the two secretly rejoiced. After 2 days of observation, Su Xiaoxiao had concluded that Ning Chushui was definitely a big shot, and not the ruthless kind. Following someone like that gave them a much better chance of survival than running around the first floor like headless chickens, searching for a needle in a haystack. The four of them reached a servant's quarters on the east side of the first floor. Ning Chushui locked the door before speaking to the other three. "Barring any surprises, the butler won't show up again today." All three were stunned. Junlu Yuan frowned. "Why do you say that, Brother Chushui?" Ning Chushui rubbed his chin. "Because today I told the butler where the young master was hiding. By now, he's probably gone looking for him. If we keep staying in this castle, I'm afraid a lot of people will die today." Generally speaking, the killings by ghosts after the Crimson Door had certain limitations. The madam couldn't possibly kill all the remaining people today, but killing 3 to 5 was no problem. No one wanted to gamble on whether they'd be one of those 3 to 5 dead. "Then what do we do?" Ning Chushui uttered 2 words that made the 3 of them jump. "Enter the painting." "Huh?" "The young master hid in the painting to avoid the butler. We can do the same." "But," Liao Jian frowned, hesitating, "isn't that a dead end? The rules made it clear." Su Xiaoxiao beside him seemed to catch Ning Chushui's meaning. "No, Brother Chushui's idea is feasible. Under normal circumstances, we really can't enter the painting because the young master is waiting for us inside. The more of us who go in, the more of us die. But now the situation is different. It's very likely the butler is also in the painting. I think the monster the young master was hiding from earlier was the butler. Now that the butler has entered the painting, the young master will definitely hide and won't dare to act recklessly. With us." Liao Jian's eyes widened at the words. "What? The butler wants to kill the young master? Why?" Su Xiaoxiao shrugged, indicating it was merely his speculation. "There are only 3 people in the castle. It's not like the lady wants to kill him, is it?" After speaking, he turned his gaze toward Ning Chushui. He nodded and added, "My deduction isn't far from Xiaoxiao's. The one who hunted the young master before was likely the butler." In the 7th painting at the corner of the first-floor hallway, there's a pair of pitch-black arms and a pair of deathly pale hands. Think back carefully. When the butler delivers our meals, doesn't he wear a black suit and white gloves? At Ning Chushui's prompting, Liao Jian suddenly shuddered. "Oh heavens, Brother Chushui, now that you mention it, it does seem that way. It's very similar. But it can't be that the butler wants to kill the young master. Why would he do that? Why must the butler kill the young master?" Facing this question, Ning Chushui offered his answer. Perhaps because the butler is a true believer, and the young master is a monster. In a sense, his actions could be considered exorcism. Of course, this is just my speculation. There are bound to be details we don't know. After speaking, Ning Chushui suddenly looked up. The 3 in the room followed his gaze. From the ceiling came a piercing scraping sound. They were no strangers to this noise. It was the sound of the scythe in the lady's hand, dragging across the floor. "Damn it, is she really going after that person?" "Probably so." Su Xiaoxiao sighed softly. "Even so, given the layout upstairs, I'm afraid that person won't escape. The lady's scythe is about to taste blood." He spoke, then thought of the woman they had tied to the bed earlier. The lady was now hunting prey on the 2nd floor. Naturally, she wouldn't overlook Luo Yuxing, who was bound hand and foot. She was as good as dead. And since the lady was the one acting, No one needed to worry about Luo Yuxing later turning into a vengeful spirit to haunt them. I'll tell you how to enter the painting first, but don't rush into it. Perhaps after the lady tastes blood, she won't come after the others. It's best not to enter the painting unless absolutely necessary, as there are unforeseen risks. Within the crimson door, everyone was a fish on the chopping block. No one could guarantee anything. And at this moment, on the second floor, Hong, the gaunt man hiding in the wardrobe of room 12, was struggling to stay calm. He possessed a ghost artifact. It was a talisman stained with the blood of a Taoist priest. This talisman originated from his third crimson door. Inside it was a Taoist priest who had unfortunately died in a battle with a fierce demon. Before his death, the priest's blood had soaked into the talisman on his body, and that talisman had coincidentally become a ghost artifact. With a ghost artifact to protect him, even if the lady discovered him, he still had a chance to escape. Thinking this, Hong no longer felt tense. Now all he had to do was do his utmost to make the black-clad lady notice the woman outside. Luo Yuxin had been kicked out by him to the front of the door. As long as the black-clad lady pushed the door open, she would immediately see Luo Yuxin lying on the ground. According to Hong's plan, the black-clad lady would kill Luo Yuxin and then likely leave at once. And he, hiding in the wardrobe, would also escape this calamity. Everything was going according to his plan. After he held his breath and waited for a few minutes, the sound of the lady's scythe dragging across the ground grew closer and closer, soon arriving at the door of room 212. And precisely at that moment, the scraping sound vanished. In the silent room, aside from the faint noise of Luo Yuxin struggling on the ground, only his own heartbeat remained. But only he could hear this sound of his heart pounding. And Hong tried to slow his breathing, hiding motionless in the wardrobe. This wardrobe had a very narrow gap. From inside, one could see outside, but due to the dim light, it was nearly impossible for anyone outside to see into the wardrobe. And Hong believed that the faint noise of Luo Yuxin struggling on the ground would surely reach the black-clad lady's ears. He waited silently, waited. Before the storm struck, there was often a brief moment of stillness. Now was no different. Until a terrifyingly loud crash suddenly erupted from the door, and Hong heard a fearful whimper escape from Luo Yuxin's nose. "Mf! Mf!" She struggled wildly, but Hong had reinforced the ropes binding her, so no matter how she thrashed, it was futile. Hong dared not open the wardrobe to see what was happening outside. He could only watch Luo Yuxin writhing like a maggot on the ground through the gap in the wardrobe. The lady's door smashing quickly ended. Then, a terrifying, gaunt black shadow stepped into Hong's line of sight. She bent down, looking at Luo Yuxin on the ground. Her pale, wrinkled face broke into a horrifying grin. Then she grabbed Luo Yuxin by the hair and right before Hong's eyes began to cut with her scythe. Blood splattered, accompanied by Luo Yuxin's agonized moans, flooding the entire room. And Hong, hiding in the wardrobe, was nearly numbed by the sight. He clamped his hand over his mouth, trembling. He had never been exposed to such a bloody scene at such close range. The black-clad lady grinned widely, right in front of him, bit by bit using that massive scythe to dismember Luo Yuxin. What chilled Hong to the bone the most was that Luo Yuxin was still alive throughout this process, enduring all the pain and terror. Finally, when Luo Yuxin's head was severed by the lady, she stopped moving at last. Her bloody head lay sideways in a pool of blood on the ground, her cold, hollow eyes, tinged with resentment, staring fixedly at Hong in the wardrobe. Hong was drenched in cold sweat, trembling incessantly inside the wardrobe. If the wardrobe hadn't been packed with clothes, his body might have knocked against the walls and made a sound. After killing Luo Yuxin, the lady turned and walked to the door, fiddling with something there. After a few breaths, there was no more sound. Is she gone now? At this moment, only this single thought remained in Hong's heart, but he didn't dare to go out, nor did he dare to crack open the wardrobe door to see the situation at the entrance, because Hong hadn't heard the sound of the lady's footsteps leaving. In the darkness, he could only hear the thumping of his own heart and the faint, suppressed sound of his own breathing. Until about 5 minutes later, with still no movement from outside, the fear in Hong's heart eased slightly. He carefully shifted forward, pressed his face against the crack and looked out. A thick, nauseating stench of blood hit his nose. And Hong gritted his teeth, forcing himself to endure the urge to vomit. Just as he was about to open the wardrobe crack to look at the door, he suddenly felt something cold drip onto his forehead, and Hong's expression froze. He slowly looked up. In the darkness, and Hong saw a ghastly white face appear above his head. "Damn it!" he screamed, trying to push the wardrobe door open, but no matter how much force he used, the door remained tightly shut, impossible to budge. The face of the black-robed lady above him continued to descend, getting closer and closer to him, until it was nearly pressed completely against the top of his head. And precisely at that moment, the talisman on An Hong's body suddenly burst into brilliant light. The talisman ignited, its radiance dispelling the ghastly white face above. Seizing this opportunity, An Hong kicked the wardrobe door open. However, just as he was about to flee from room 212, he discovered that the lady had already blocked the door with her scythe. An Hong grabbed the scythe with both hands, trying to move it, but the scythe seemed fixed in place. No matter how much strength he used, it wouldn't budge. Seeing this, An Hong's heart turned ice cold. He knew. He was completely trapped. First floor, staff bedroom. By the way, Brother Chu Shui, aren't we going to tell Guangyang and the others about entering the painting? Liao Jian posed a question. Since entering the painting carries risks, if we bring a few more people in, could we reduce the danger? Ning Chu Shui shook his head. Your idea isn't bad, but doing so might not reduce the risk. It could actually increase it. Hearing this, Liao Jian was a bit confused. Increase it? Why? Su Xiao beside him smacked him on the head. So stupid. Can't you figure out such a simple question? Liao Jian glared at Su Xiao. You're the only smart one, so you explain it. Su Xiao laughed and said, because the danger we're facing doesn't just come from the young master, but also from the lady outside. Leaving a few people outside to hold off the lady can draw her attention. If we all suddenly disappear from the castle, the lady might notice something. If she discovers the world inside the painting, it'll be very troublesome. At that point, with both the young master and the lady inside, wouldn't we all be dead? After he finished speaking, Jun Luyuan also nodded slightly. This is actually a very simple reason. It's just that Liao Jian was a bit stubborn, so he didn't think of it. Seeing the three of them looking at him with pitying eyes, as if he were mentally deficient, Liao Jian said dejectedly, "Damn it, am I the only one who didn't figure it out?" Just then, a dark shadow suddenly flashed past the window, followed immediately by the sound of a heavy object hitting the ground. Bam! The four people in the room became alert and turned to look, only to see a figure running like the wind into the rain. What's going on? Hey, isn't that An Hong? Damn it, he got caught by the madam, panicked, and jumped out the window to escape. But didn't the rules say you can't get wet in the rain? Just as Su Xiao finished speaking, the distant dark shadow suddenly let out a miserable scream. Ah! Help! Help! Everyone was startled by his sudden piercing scream. They carefully observed An Hong by the window. They discovered he was melting in the rain. First, his two legs gave way. An Hong fell to the ground, rolling endlessly on the surface. Next came his torso and head. In just a few seconds, he had turned into a pool of blood right before everyone's eyes. Those standing by the window were all horrified. Oh my God! What the hell is this? Acid rain? Liao Jian swallowed his saliva and instinctively took a step back, moving away from the window, afraid of getting splashed by the rain. Screech! Along with An Hong's death in the heavy rain, that terrifying scraping sound rang out above the heads of the four people again. And they noticed that there were damp traces on the ceiling of their room, as if water was slowly seeping out. Is this house leaking? Liao Jian muttered. I'm afraid it's not a leak, but that we've caught the attention of the black-robed madam. Ning Yushui's eyes flickered. Liao Jian shrank his neck and said with wide eyes, Caught her attention? Probably because we were too close to the black-robed madam just now. Get into the painting. She's very fast. If we're not quick, we might not make it. Hearing this, the other three understood the implication. They immediately visualized in their minds the painting left by the young master in the first-floor hallway. Sure enough, in less than half a minute, they felt the painting in their minds becoming clearer and clearer. Their consciousness began to drift, as if about to be sucked into it. Ningqiu Shui had told them that each person should visualize the clearest version of the painting from their own memory. As their consciousness was gradually engulfed by the painting, their figures in the first-floor room also began to fade. And it was precisely at this moment that a terrifying, scraping sound came from the hallway. Screech! From far to near, moving very fast. They could have actually left this room first to hide, but Ningqiu Shui felt that those water stains might represent the madam's hatred for them. No matter where they hid, it would be useless. Most importantly, they couldn't afford to gamble. If his guess was correct, then changing their position would be meaningless and would only waste precious time needed to enter the painting. Don't mind what's outside. Focus on visualizing, Ningqiu Shui reminded the three. Without the young master's help, the time it took them to enter the world within the painting had already been much longer. But at this moment, they had to focus their minds more than ever. The lady outside was fast, relentlessly approaching their room. If they stopped visualizing now, it would be nearly equivalent to death. On the dark corridor, the tall, gaunt lady in black dragged a blood-stained scythe, her steps quickening as she advanced toward the room of Ningqiu Shui and the other three. As she strode to the door of Ningqiu Shui's room, a sinister smile spread across her face. The scythe in the lady's hand slashed fiercely at the door. With one strike, the sturdy wooden door was split open with a large gash. She pressed her pale, ghastly face against the gap, her venomous eyes sweeping unceasingly through every corner of the room. Water, too, kept spreading across the floor inside. But soon the smile on the lady in black's face vanished, replaced by confusion and indifference. The four people she had targeted had disappeared from this room, just like her child. After entering the room, the lady in black refused to believe in bad luck and searched for a long time. Yet, after scouring every nook and cranny, she found no trace of the four. The lady in black let out a furious roar, then turned her slightly bloodshot eyes toward another direction on the first floor. Before long, the indifference on her face twisted back into a cruel smile. Dragging her blood-soaked scythe, she headed that way. Inside the painting. Regaining consciousness, Ningqiu Shui looked around the room. The world within this painting was completely shrouded in darkness. It was very strange. Even with a bright light overhead in the room, the space remained extremely dim, like an overexposed photograph in broad daylight. Ningqiu Shui walked to the door, examined the familiar patterns painted on the back of the door panel, then rubbed his chin. So this is the world inside the painting. It seems like a three-person game of hide-and-seek. A cat chases a mouse, a dog chases a cat. The world inside the young master's painting closely resembled the castle. After all, it was created based on the castle. Ningqiu Shui pushed the door open and stepped out, realizing he was on the third floor of the castle within the painting. However, this place was different from the castle in the real world outside. The castle in the painting was dilapidated, with bloodstains everywhere. On the floor, on the walls, it seemed a massacre had once occurred here. The air was thick with the stench of blood. Ningqiu Shui followed the bloody smell to another room. He gently pushed the door open, peered inside, and immediately saw several incomplete body parts. These corpses bore numerous bite marks, as if they had been gnawed by some wild animals before death. Of course, Ningqiu Shui knew that no wild animals existed in this painted world. These incomplete body parts must have been the young master's doing. Among the pile of limbs, Ningqiu Shui also found Pang Yun's head. Clearly, he hadn't escaped the young master's grasp. This door showed signs of forced entry, indicating that the butler had broken in not long ago. Therefore, this room might be safe. Suppressing his nausea, Ningqiu Shui stepped into the room and began his investigation. Ningqiu Shui found a smaller footprint among the chaotic, blood-soaked tracks. He crouched down for a closer look and concluded it was left by the young master. Only footprints and bite marks. There are many body parts here. It's definitely not just two corpses. That means others were dragged into this painting world earlier. Ningqiu Shui raised an eyebrow. In the painting world, corpses do not decay. The body parts on the ground all appeared equally fresh, showing no signs of rot. Earlier, on the first floor of the castle, when he saw the paintings left by the young master, Ning Chu Shui had thought the young master was hiding from some monster within the castle. But after what happened that night, Ning Chu Shui realized that, in fact, the young master was the monster in the castle. He was merely hiding from someone who could harm him. The young master is a monster. The lady is a monster, so his father is very likely a monster too. But why does the butler harbor such murderous intent toward the young master? Is there some special reason behind this? Ning Chu Shui was genuinely curious about this. If the butler was relentlessly hunting the young master to exorcise evil, then the lady should not have been spared either. Yet the butler seemed unwilling to act against the lady. There must be another, special reason. Ning Chu Shui searched the room and quickly found a sketchbook in a corner behind a bed. The scribbled drawings in the sketchbook were very strange. It depicted a man with no facial features, his entire body shrouded in dense darkness. The young master had drawn many such scribbles, and they were nearly identical, all of the same man. Among these drawings, there were also some lines of text. Dad said he would be with me forever. Ning Chu Shui continued flipping toward the back. In the latter half of the sketchbook, the drawings changed to another man. The butler of the castle, near. The young master had drawn him with fangs and claws, looking extremely ferocious. If not for the distinctive cross hanging around his neck, Ning Chu Shui would hardly have recognized him. There were also some lines of text interspersed among these scribbles. The most common one was, "The man tied to the cross was driven out of the house by Dad. You will soon be driven out by the maid too. Monster! Die! Die!" Looking at these words, many pieces of information in Ning Chu Shui's mind connected and a terrifying conjecture gradually emerged. Earlier, he had always felt that placing a plaster statue of Jesus beside the dining table for the lady to watch them eat was somewhat disrespectful. Now it seemed he was right. The lady was not a follower of Jesus, and this was indeed an act of blasphemy. The plaster statue of Jesus beside the dining table was originally the object of worship in the church. But then, something terrifying came to the church, and it pushed the plaster statue of Jesus out of the church. From then on, the statue of Jesus could only stand like a lowly servant beside its butler, watching its servant serve the black-clad lady. You have been kicked down from your divine throne, and your followers are only worthy of serving my followers. This was a blatant display, or in other words, an act of blasphemy. The young master calls the lady a maidservant, which means the lady and that thing in the church are not husband and wife. She is merely a follower, or more accurately, a puppet of that thing. It's highly likely that the other party is only using the lady's body as a vessel to give birth to the young master. That thing in the church made the lady pregnant and gave birth to the young master. Does it want to use the young master to do something? Could it be? Thinking back to the Western horror movies he had seen before, Ning Chu Shui's gaze gradually turned serious. Some evil and terrifying forces, due to certain rules, cannot appear directly in the world. But if there is a suitable vessel, they can bypass those rules. And that thing in the church of the Manor is very likely trying to borrow the young master to truly descend into this world, not merely to be worshipped in the church. If this speculation is correct, then the butler's desperate efforts to kill the young master seem to make sense. Just as Ning Chu Shui was muttering to himself, a hurried sound of footsteps suddenly echoed from outside the hallway. Ning Chu Shui quickly grabbed the young master's photo album and walked to the door. He saw a small, thin black figure running toward him in a panic from a distance. Just as he was about to reach Ning Chu Shui, the latter suddenly stuck out his foot. The young master fell flat on his face. Immediately after, Ning Chu Shui shouted loudly toward the end of the hallway, "Nair, the young master is with me. Hurry up." This voice rang out like a bell. The young master, lying on the ground, let out a piercing scream, staring at Ning Chu Shui with a venomous gaze, as if he wanted to devour him alive. "I will kill you!" The young master's mouth suddenly opened wide, the corners of his mouth stretching all the way to his ears, revealing rows of sharp fangs inside. His tongue split in two like a snake's, dripping with a foul-smelling yellowish-brown liquid. Death was approaching. Ning Chu Shui, quick-witted, stepped back and dodged the young master's tongue attack. The sharp, sword-like tongue struck the air. The young master wanted to continue his assault, but the black figure appearing at the end of the hallway made him stop. Without a second thought, he turned and fled. But just as he turned around, Ning Chu Shui suddenly lunged forward and kicked him directly in the back of the knee. The young master collapsed to the ground. "You damn dog," he cursed. In an instant, the butler caught up. The young master didn't even look back, directly turning around and swinging a claw. Several terrifying scratches immediately appeared on the surrounding walls. If those claws had struck a person, they would have been torn to pieces. Fortunately, Ning Chu Shui had anticipated this and retreated a few steps earlier, avoiding the attack. The young master scrambled to his feet, wanting to continue his escape, but before he could run a few steps, a door beside him suddenly burst open. "I'm here!" Thud! Because he was running too fast, the young master couldn't stop in time and slammed straight into the door, staggering and nearly falling. Holding his nose, he stumbled to the side, not even bothering to glance at Su Xiao Xiao, who had just opened the door. If it weren't for the butler chasing behind him, he would have devoured Su Xiao Xiao alive. But now there was no time. The footsteps of the butler behind him were like demonic too, drawing closer and closer. At this moment, he only wanted to flee, with no mind left for anything else. However, Su Xiao Xiao, who had just opened the door, refused to let go. She chased after him, grabbing the young master's clothes and asking with concern, "Child, are you all right?" The young master turned around, his face twisted with resentment mixed with a thick, murderous aura. He raised his hand to attack Su Xiao Xiao, but she had already acted first, driving a coffin nail into his back. The young master let out a miserable scream, frozen in place, unable to move for a moment. This coffin nail had a special binding effect, originally used to suppress vengeful spirits inside coffins. Seeing the butler about to reach him, the young master struggled free from the coffin nail's restraint just in time. Unfortunately, it was too late. The butler's pale hand had already grabbed the back of his neck. The young master screamed and struggled, but his strength was far inferior to the butler's. The butler held him with one hand, while the other removed the silver cross from his neck, gripping it tightly. Then, before everyone's eyes, he smashed it repeatedly into the young master's crown. The sight made everyone's scalp tingle. Soon, the cross had shattered the young master's skull. Ning Chu Shui, standing closest, could even see the pink brain matter still steaming hot. The young master's face was filled with despair and resentment as he glared at everyone, but no one felt the slightest fear, because he was dead for sure. "My father will avenge me," he managed to utter one final sentence. Then the butler, holding the cross, directly smashed his head to pieces. Everything descended into chaos. With the young master's death, the world within the painting began to billow with thick smoke and raging flames. Wherever the fire touched, it vanished completely into the void. The butler walked toward Ning Shui, who was closest to him, and handed him the cross pendant in his hand. "It can only be used once, just like last time. You know how to use it. The lady is growing more and more deranged. You don't have much time left," he said coldly. Pausing, he answered a question Ning Chu Shui had asked earlier. "There are no umbrellas in the castle. Only the skin of the savior can shield you from the rain from the sky." After speaking, the butler pointed toward the end of the hallway. Ning Chu Shui and the others turned to look. On the wall there, a massive door had appeared, painted with a cross on its surface. It seemed this was the exit from the world within the painting. The flames were about to reach it. "Near, aren't you coming out?" Though time was pressing, Ning Chu Shui still asked. The butler shook his head, once again displaying his signature stiff smile. But this time it seemed to carry a hint more. Humanity. "I cannot leave. May the Savior be with you all." Ning Chu Shui said nothing more, gazing at him deeply before turning and sprinting back toward the door with the others. Liao Jian, who had run ahead, kicked the door open. Behind the door was a pitch-black void, but a faint point of light glimmered in the distance. After stepping through the door, Ning Chu Shui glanced back. The butler stood in the hallway until the flames engulfed him, burning him to ashes. He let out an almost imperceptible sigh, then dashed at full speed toward that point of light. As he pressed forward, the light grew larger and brighter. Finally, when the light completely swallowed Ningqiu Shui, his vision returned to normal. They were still in that room on the first floor of the castle. The four of them had returned. "Are we out?" How miraculous. But the butler, he couldn't make it out, could he? Junlu Yuan spoke with a heavy tone. Liao Jian, who had just been brimming with excitement, was doused with cold water. Indeed, they had escaped, but the butler had died inside. Without the butler, who would stop the enraged lady in black? Su Xiaoxiao pondered silently, glancing at Ningqiu Shui beside him. Earlier, when they fled the world within the painting, only Ningqiu Shui and the butler had spoken privately. They were too far away to hear the details, but he had seen the butler hand the silver cross necklace from his neck to Ningqiu Shui. "Brother Chu Shui, do you have a way?" Ningqiu Shui looked at the silver cross in his hand and said, "The butler told me how to stop the lady from going berserk, but this method is only temporary. Let's find the lady first and deal with the immediate crisis." Everyone nodded. They quickly left the room, but as soon as they stepped out, they saw several long trails of blood on the hallway. This was clearly left by the lady's scythe. Given the amount of blood, someone else had likely died. They followed the bloodstains in one direction, suddenly hearing a terrified scream ahead. The four hurried to the room where the scream came from. The lady in black, holding a scythe in her right hand and a bloody head in her left, blocked the doorway. Inside the room, only Wen Qingya remained. She was pale, trembling all over like a sieve, her usual calm and composure gone. And the head in the lady's hand belonged to the girl Wang Xiao. Her lifeless eyes still held the remnants of extreme fear. Thick blood oozed from her neck, dripping to the ground. The lady in black's attention was drawn to them. She turned her pale face and stared at everyone. At the critical moment, Ningqiu Shui stepped forward, holding the silver cross, aiming it at the lady in black. "Milady, wake up!" Seeing the silver cross, the lady in black froze. After a few minutes, the madness and ferocity on her face gradually faded. Then, before everyone's eyes, the lady slowly turned around, dragging her scythe, and walked away. After the lady left, everyone's tense heart gradually calmed down. Wen Qingya in the room was still trembling, but it was no longer as severe as before. "Why are you the only one left? Where is Guangyong?" Su Xiaoxiao asked. Wen Qingya's voice trembled. "I don't know. He was hiding in the same room with us, but then he suddenly disappeared." Hearing this, the four of them were stunned. They immediately thought that Guangyong had also entered the painting. "Which room did he disappear in? Take us to see." Wen Qingya led Ningqiu Shui and the others back to the room where they had hidden earlier. There was no trace of Guangyong in this room. Ningqiu Shui and the others all guessed that Guangyong had most likely vanished along with the world inside that painting. If he couldn't escape that place in time, no matter how much ghost energy he had on him, it would be useless. The atmosphere gradually grew heavy, like mud in a swamp, sticky and thick. "Now, is it just the five of us left?" Liao Jian's expression was panicked. Although he tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart, less than 3 days had passed, and 11 of their 16 people had died. This death rate was truly too high. Worse still, the butler, who had sided with them, was also dead. In the next 2 days, Liao Jin didn't know what terrifying dangers they would have to face. Could they really survive until the 5th day? In fact, the current situation is more favorable for us. In the midst of everyone's panic, Ningqiu Shui remained calm, almost eerily so. He was different from ordinary people. Having struggled between life and death for years in the chaotic borderlands, his mental fortitude was certainly not something that ordinary people could match after just a few brushes with death. A person who couldn't swim wouldn't suddenly learn how to swim after a few showers. Favorable for us? Wen Qingya looked up, a hint of confusion in her eyes. That's right. Although we've lost many people, and the butler is dead, the young master's problem has now been resolved. We've also learned most of the deadly rules in the castle. The only issue left is to go to the church to find the young master's father and get the key to leave the estate. When the mission time comes, we'll immediately escape the estate. After saying this, Ning Shui repeated the words the butler had told him earlier. Before we left the world inside the painting, the butler answered my question from yesterday. He told us that there are no umbrellas in the castle. The only thing that can shield from the rain is the skin of the Savior. Hearing these words, everyone felt a sense of absurdity. The skin of the Savior? What the hell is that? Su Xiao ran her hand through her long hair, a strange expression on her face. Wen Qingya lowered her head and said softly, "In Christianity, they believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior. But where are we supposed to find the skin of Jesus? The only Jesus in this castle is the plaster statue next to dining hall. To be precise, it doesn't even have skin." Everyone fell silent for a moment. That's right. Where would they find the skin of the Savior? At some point, dinner time had arrived. But tonight, the butler was not waiting there early. Seeing the empty spot where the butler should have stood, the remaining 5 felt a strange sense of longing. Missing an NPC on their side made everyone feel far less secure. The lights in the hall were somewhat dim and hazy. The cold wind blowing through the corridor sent a bone-piercing chill through them. No one was smiling anymore. No one was wearing white gloves to prepare dinner for them. The dining table was bare, completely empty. But after that moment, the sound of the lady's footsteps echoed once more from the distant corridor. Thump! Thump! Hearing those footsteps again, everyone's skin crawled. The butler wasn't here tonight, and there was no food on the table. Would the lady be angry? The footsteps drew closer from afar, like a verdict descending upon them. Many thought to themselves, wouldn't it be safer to rest in their rooms right now? The reason they were here was because Ning Shui was here. The pale white lights shone brightly. The tall, gaunt woman in a black dress slowly took her seat at the head of the table, just as usual, unchanged. Only tonight, there was nothing for her to eat. Everyone sat still, not moving. The atmosphere at the dining table was both horrifying and bizarre. The smile on the lady's pale face grew increasingly terrifying. She just stared at them like that. Whenever her gaze swept over someone, they could clearly feel a bone-piercing chill on their skin. Those with ghost artifacts had already gripped them tightly, ready to face any sudden crisis. Based on the pattern of the past 2 days, their mealtime wouldn't be too long. But tonight was especially unbearable. Every second passed agonizingly slowly. This was a huge test of their mental fortitude. Finally, after a long wait, the lady stiffly stood up as usual and walked toward the corridor. It seemed she didn't care at all whether there was food on the table, nor did she care where the butler in the castle had gone. She simply followed the predetermined script, going through the motions. She just climbed the stairs, step by step. After the lady in black finally left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. A draft blew through, and they realized their clothes were soaked with cold sweat. Damn it, that was terrifying. Liao Zhan clutched his chest, looking exhausted. In my opinion, we should stay in our rooms tonight and not go out. Junlu Yuan, sitting beside Ning Shui, nodded in agreement. Just now, I really thought she was going to make a move on us. After speaking, he glanced at Ning Shui, only to find him still staring intently at the staircase. Brother Chu Shui, what are you looking at? Junlu Yuan keenly sensed something was wrong. After he spoke, everyone else also noticed that Ning Shui was still fixated on the stairs. They followed his gaze, but suddenly their skin crawled in unison. The lady, who should have gone upstairs, was now silently crouching at the foot of the staircase, staring at them through the gaps between the iron railings. Feeling the lady's gaze, Wen Qingya and Liao Jian were so terrified they nearly stood up simultaneously, ready to flee. Sit down. Ning Shui said a single sentence. The two paused for a moment, then actually obeyed Ning Shui, obediently sitting back in their original spots. At this moment, Ning Shui, who could still maintain absolute calm, had become the core of this small group. Facing the lady's pale face, everyone trembled in fear. They were terrified that the lady would rush out from behind the stair railing and devour them all. Fortunately, the horrifying scene they anticipated did not occur. As if aware that everyone had noticed her, the lady flashed a strange smile, then slowly walked upstairs. This time, she no longer spied on them. Damn it. What was that old woman looking at just now? Liao Jian's fingers twitched uncontrollably. It was a minor side effect left over from the adrenaline surge. Su Xiaoxiao beside him was also in no mood to joke anymore. He had clearly sensed that the lady in black was about to lose her patience. Don't panic. Just now, she wasn't looking at us, and for now, she can't do anything to us. At least not right now, unless we actively break the rules, Ning Chushui said. The reason he stayed at the dinner table tonight was to confirm a hypothesis, and the lady's behavior had let Ning Chushui know that his hypothesis was correct. If she wasn't looking at us just now, then who was she looking at? Liao Jian asked, full of doubt. Jesus, Ning Chushui replied. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then all turned to look at the plaster statue of Jesus. This plaster statue was no different from before, completely unchanged. The lady was looking at this thing earlier. What was she looking at it for? Ning Chushui didn't speak, still deep in thought. Su Xiaoxiao beside him, half guessing and half explaining, helped him out. Maybe the lady is afraid we'll do something to this statue of Jesus. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chushui stood up and walked over to the plaster statue. Then Ning Chushui gently touched the plaster statue, and his expression shifted slightly. When he touched it, Ning Chushui felt that the surface of this plaster statue was increasingly resembling human skin. What's going on? Startled, Ning Chushui immediately said to the others, Everyone, come and feel it. Junlu Yuan was the first to step forward, placing both hands on the plaster statue, continuously stroking it. What's wrong, Brother Chushui? Do you feel anything off? No, it's just an ordinary plaster statue. The others tried one by one. It was the same for all of them. Seeing this, Ning Chushui fell into deep thought. It seemed only he had this sensation. Why? Because he was special? Or perhaps... At that moment, he suddenly thought of something and took out the silver cross the butler had given him. Could it be that you need to hold this thing to sense the abnormality? Ning Chushui was startled, then immediately asked Junlu Yuan to hand him the scissors. Red. A ghost artifact is not only useful against ghosts. If you insist on using a sharp kitchen knife to cut vegetables and meat, there is no problem. It will not consume its durability. This pair of scissors is very sharp. Ning Chushui held the pendant in his left hand and the scissors in his right, attempting to cut into the head of the plaster statue. The people beside him immediately widened their eyes, because they saw that when Ning Chushui's scissors cut through the outer layer of plaster, bright red blood was seeping from within. Damn it! Liao Jian swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but take a step back. How could a plaster statue bleed? Ning Chushui's movements grew increasingly fluid. It wasn't that he had never skinned a person before. Though his method wasn't the most professional, he was still quite skilled. Soon, he peeled a bloody layer of skin off the plaster statue. The moment this layer of skin appeared, the deathly white surface instantly transformed into the complexion of an ordinary person. Holy shit, what the hell is this? Everyone took a deep breath. Ning Chushui weighed the human skin in his hand, then turned his head to look at the plaster statue. It was smaller than before, but the outside was still plaster. Ning Chushui followed the same method and quickly peeled off another layer of skin. When he finally finished peeling off the fifth layer, this plaster statue was not only bleeding all over the floor, but had also shrunk by a full circle compared to its original size. Tonight, wash the human skin yourself and put it away. This thing is very important, Ning Chushui said. After a pause, he added more details. Only by wearing this can you enter the rain. Otherwise, once you get wet in the rain, you'll melt instantly. This last sentence was basically said for Wen Qingya alone, because the other three had all witnessed with their own eyes the scene of An Hong melting in the rain. After storing the human skin, Ning Chushui picked up the silver cross, bowed his head before the plaster statue of Jesus that had shrunk by a full circle, and expressed his gratitude. Behind the crimson door, all things have souls. No matter who the other party was, since they had helped them, saying thank you was necessary. After finishing this task, everyone went upstairs and returned to their own rooms. There were 5 of them left. Since only 2 people could stay in one room, even though Wen Qingya was somewhat frightened, she still had to grit her teeth and stay alone in a room. As usual, no matter what happens tonight, no matter what you hear, don't open your eyes. If you don't trigger the death rule, we can survive. If you trigger the death rule, you will definitely die. Before going to sleep, Ning Shui once again gave everyone a preventive dose. His intuition told him that the lady might do something different tonight. Lying on the bed, Junlu Yuan tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Given what had happened during the day, he always felt uneasy. He himself didn't know where this sense of unease came from. But ever since encountering several crises behind the crimson door, Junlu Yuan had gradually begun to trust his intuition. This thing was sometimes even better than the brain. Brother Shui. Junlu Yuan turned his head and looked at Ning Shui, whose eyes were open on the bed beside him. Beside him, he couldn't help but ask, "Tonight, is it the same as before?" Ning Shui replied, "Under normal circumstances, the lady can't do anything to us tonight. The rules of the Crimson Door are an absolute forbidden zone. Neither human nor ghost may trespass." Hearing Ning Shui's answer, Junlu Yuan nodded. He trusted Ning Shui completely, but Junlu Yuan could see that Ning Shui's expression was slightly off. His brows were furrowed, as if he was worried about something. "Brother Shui, is there something on your mind?" Facing Junlu Yuan's question, Ning Shui was silent for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, something's wrong." In truth, this feeling had been with him since he entered the room that evening. During that time, Ning Shui had been repeatedly replaying everything that had happened that day, trying to pinpoint the source of this unease. It was crucial. It concerned their life and death. "Actually, I've been feeling it too." Junlu Yuan's voice was somewhat low. Ning Shui looked up in surprise. "You too?" Junlu Yuan replied, "Yes. After I got back, I washed the skin of Jesus and put it in the wardrobe. No matter what, I couldn't sleep. It felt like danger was approaching." Hearing Junlu Yuan's description, Ning Shui glanced toward the wardrobe. The skin of Jesus. Could this unease be related to that thing? Ning Shui moved slightly, walking over to the wardrobe. After opening it, the two pieces of skin inside were neatly stacked, nothing unusual. They were hidden among these clothes. Is the danger related to the skin of Jesus? Did I miss some detail? Ning Shui carefully recalled everything that had happened today. He had thought about it many times in his mind, but this time he focused his attention on the evening. After they finished dinner, the lady, who should have gone upstairs and left, instead hid behind the stair railing, secretly watching them. Since they entered this castle, this wasn't the first time Ning Shui had observed the lady's actions. He confirmed that in the previous 2 days, the lady had never behaved so excessively. Noticing this detail, Ning Shui's eyes suddenly shifted. He knew what detail he had missed. "Let's go," he suddenly shouted at Junlu Yuan. Junlu Yuan didn't know what was happening, but seeing Ning Shui so decisive, he didn't ask immediately and followed him out of the room. Once outside, Ning Shui closed the door. The hallway where they stood instantly darkened. The corridor on the second floor of the castle had lights, but tonight they weren't on. Perhaps because the butler wasn't there. So when they closed the door, the entire hallway became pitch black. A damp and cold air filled the space, and both of them instinctively lowered their footsteps. This scene gave Ning Shui a sense of familiarity. His first Crimson Door had also experienced such a scene. Thus, Ning Shui was relatively calmer at this moment. In contrast, Junlu Yuan, under the influence of the dark and cold environment, his courage is being steadily eroded. At this moment, he faces not only the threat of death, but also humanity's innate fear of darkness and the unknown. With every step, Junlu Yuan felt his courage draining away. If not for the sound of Ning Shui's footsteps beside him, Junlu Yuan didn't know how he would face this terrifying darkness. "We still have time. It's not the lady's turn to act yet. Hurry and call them out of the rooms," Ning Shui said to Junlu Yuan. Hearing Ning Shui's voice in the darkness, Junlu Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, being able to hear Ning Shui's calm voice was a sedative for him. Tonight, the 3 rooms of the 5 people were all adjacent, so they didn't need to walk too long in the darkness. Soon, they arrived at the first room next door. Ning Shui knocked on the door. No one answered from inside. Ning Shui leaned his head close to the crack in the door and whispered, "I'm Ning Shui. It's not safe inside. Come out quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, after a short while, footsteps sounded from within. The door opened, and Su Xiaoxiao cautiously poked half her face out. "Brother Chu Shui, what's going on?" Seeing his suspicious expression, Ning Chu Shui knew that Su Xiaoxiao wasn't sure if it was the real Ning Chu Shui, hence her caution. He immediately took out the silver cross that the butler had given him and shook it in front of Su Xiaoxiao. "Here." Seeing the pendant, Su Xiaoxiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. She opened the door and waved at Liao Jian behind her. "Liao Jian, come out quickly." Liao Jian nodded and hurriedly followed Su Xiaoxiao to the door. "Brother Chu Shui, what's happening?" Ning Chu Shui shook his head. "It's very complicated, can't explain it all at once. I'll explain to everyone later. Let's hurry and call Wen Qingya out." Su Xiaoxiao nodded. They gently closed the door and hurried to Wen Qingya's door, knocking. Soon Wen Qingya's voice came from inside, a bit hoarse. "Who? Qingya, don't be afraid, it's us. Come out quickly, it's not safe in the room." After Su Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Wen Qingya was silent for a long time, as if judging whether the person outside was really Su Xiaoxiao. Seeing her hesitation, Liao Jian also urged, "We're not the Black Lady in disguise. Come out quickly." Liao Jian's voice seemed to win Wen Qingya's trust. The door quickly opened a crack. "You really aren't the lady in disguise?" Wen Qingya was still hesitant. "Nonsense. Even if the lady can disguise herself as one of us, she can't disguise herself as so many people. Hurry up." Wen Qingya seemed to feel that Su Xiaoxiao had a point. Just then, a cold wind blew from behind her, and she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She quickly scrambled out of the room. "Brother Chu Shui, what happened?" Su Xiaoxiao asked. Ning Chu Shui said quietly, "The lady's killing rules have changed." Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled. "The killing rules have changed?" "Yes." "Brother Chu Shui, how do you know?" Ning Chu Shui calculated the time in his mind and explained, "There's not much time left. Of course, I can't be completely certain. Next, I'll briefly explain the situation to you. After that, what you decide to do is up to you. During this time, don't ask questions." Everyone nodded immediately. At this moment, they were far from the staircase at the other end, able to see each other only by the faint moonlight outside the window. Earlier, in the painting world, the butler told me that the lady's sanity is fading. That means her mind has been affected by something in the church, making her no longer like a normal person. She constantly searches for albums with traces at night, essentially looking for the young master. The butler previously hinted that the young master had disappeared in the castle for a long time. Yet even so, the lady never gave up searching. This shows she is certain of two things. First, the young master is not dead. Second, the young master has never left the castle. I think perhaps because the young master is her own flesh and blood, she has some kind of connection with him. Now that the butler has killed the young master, the lady must have sensed this as well. So, tonight, the lady will no longer search for the young master. Hearing this conclusion, everyone shuddered. That's right. From this perspective, the lady's killing rules tonight are very likely to change. The lady is a devotee of something in the church. Whatever she does, her fundamental purpose is for that thing in the church. Earlier, she crouched on the staircase watching the plaster statue of Jesus. It's very possible she was worried the butler would tell us how to avoid the rain. That plaster statue has been there for so long without being destroyed, proving the lady can't do anything to it. In other words, she also can't touch the skin of the Savior that we peeled off. If that's the case, how can the lady stop us from reaching the church? If she can't deal with the tool, then naturally, she can only deal with the one carrying the tool. When he finished speaking, everyone's hearts sank to the bottom. Ning Chu Shui's analysis was certainly not baseless. From the situation over the past 2 days, the lady was an NPC that acted according to a fixed pattern. Except for special circumstances, her trajectory of action would not change. But last night, after dinner, the lady didn't immediately go upstairs but secretly hid on the staircase to observe them. This abnormal behavior itself was a hint to them. So tonight, the lady will hunt us down? Wen Qingya covered her mouth, the calm in her eyes completely turning into panic. Not just tonight. In fact, the lady has been hunting us every night. It's just that. The hunting rules tonight are slightly different from the previous 2 nights. Xu Xiaoxiao was arguably the most composed person in the group besides Ning Chu Shui. Even at this moment, he could still calmly analyze the dire situation before them. If Brother Chu Shui's speculation is correct, then the lady's hunting rule for us tonight should be, as long as the skin of the savior appears in the room, we die. Ning Chu Shui nodded. Exactly. That's what I think too. That's why I hurriedly called you all out. Liao Jian looked at the church through the rain-streaked window, a thought stirring in his heart. Is there any chance we take a risk tonight and head to the church to settle this once and for all? After he spoke, everyone fell silent. Finally, Ning Shui said, No, that's too risky. Unless there's a clear hint from behind the crimson door, it's best not to act at night. Yin energy is heavy at night. It's their favorite time. Let's switch rooms. No matter what, let's try to hold out until tomorrow morning. In the end, everyone accepted Ning Chu Shui's suggestion. They all changed rooms. By midnight, the lady arrived as expected. This time, she didn't enter through the window, but directly opened everyone's doors. The lady dragged a blood-stained scythe, reeking of gore, pacing back and forth in the room, rummaging through the belongings. Those lying in bed naturally couldn't sleep. They kept their eyes shut, bodies trembling violently, only able to hear the black-clad lady incessantly searching the room, muttering like a possessed soul. Where is it? Where is it? Where have you hidden it? It must be in this room. It must be in this room. I will find it. Several times, those lying down. Fortunately, protected by the rules, the lady ultimately couldn't harm them, no matter how furious and frenzied she became. In the end, after ransacking the room, she could only drag her scythe reluctantly and leave. Seeing the lady depart, everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. They were certain that Ning Chu Shui's speculation was correct. They had survived. For now, the next morning, Jun Luyuan saw the lady's blood-red eyes in his dream. He let out a scream, immediately waking and sitting bolt upright in bed. After gasping for a few breaths, he realized Ning Chu Shui was no longer in bed. The sound of brushing teeth and washing came from the bathroom. Jun Luyuan went to the bathroom door and saw Ning Chu Shui, as usual, quickly washing his face and tidying himself up. He looked at the man in the mirror and smiled bitterly. Brother Chu Shui, your composure is enviable. After what happened last night, you still have the mood to wash up today. Ning Chu Shui spat the toothpaste out of his mouth and said with a smile, Death always comes without warning. Learn to compose yourself so that when you go, you'll at least look decent. His voice carried a deep implication, as if recalling his own past days. Of course, Jun Luyuan wouldn't understand these things. He just felt that Ning Chu Shui was very handsome, so he also took a moment to wash his face. While he was washing his face, a knock came from outside the door. Jun Luyuan looked toward the door. Through the large crack the lady had slashed into it the night before, he caught a glimpse of Su Xiao's delicate face outside. Since it's already like this, is knocking really necessary? He grumbled. Su Xiao grinned, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. I just wanted to say we're ready. When do we set off? Jun Luyuan glanced at Ning Chu Shui, who nodded. Then, Jun Luyuan spat out the foam in his mouth, rinsed briefly with clean water, and replied cheerfully, Right now. Daytime was a relatively safe period. As long as they didn't go up to the 3rd floor of the castle and trigger the lady's killing rule, she usually wouldn't appear or cause them trouble. Everyone wanted to take this opportunity to go together to the church and retrieve the key to the manor's main gate. Most importantly, they had timed it carefully. Under normal circumstances, the lady would come to the dining table for breakfast between 8 and 9 in the morning. Even though there was no longer any breakfast for her now, she would still sit at the dining table during that time. If they entered the church at this moment, even if they encountered some dangerous situation, they could still avoid the possibility of being attacked from both sides. Everyone returned to the room from before, found the skin of the savior folded and spread out. A complex expression flickered across Jun Luyuan's face as he asked foolishly, The lady can't touch this thing. If we had draped this over ourselves last night, could we have survived safely? Ning Chu Shui shot him a glance. This thing isn't a raincoat. It can only cover a part. but you can try again later if you get the chance. Hearing this, Junluyuan shrank his neck. Forget it. He didn't dare risk his life to test it. His life was something his sister had traded her own life for. Junluyuan had never forgotten that. He wanted to reach the end of the mist world, to see if there really was a bronze tree there, if he could truly see his departed loved ones beneath that bronze tree. Preparations were made. Everyone confirmed the time and went to a window on the first floor to wait. They truly didn't dare to openly carry the skin of the Savior out of the castle in front of the lady. Since they couldn't use the main door, they had to climb through the window. After pushing the window open, the damp air outside rushed in. Ningqiu Shui took the lead, donning the hat made from the skin of Jesus on his head, and climbed out. Once outside, his body seemed enveloped by a mysterious power. This power formed a barrier-like bubble around him, and the rainwater from the sky all fell outside these areas. Seeing that he was unharmed, everyone followed suit, mimicking him as they left the castle. This was the first time in 4 days that everyone had left the castle. They felt as if they had just escaped from prison. The 5 of them followed the path the lady had taken earlier, heading toward the church in the manor's backyard. From a great distance, they sensed that the church, which should have been sacred and solemn, instead exuded a stream of incomprehensible evil energy. Ningqiu Shui had felt this sensation since the very first night. As the church doors were pushed open, the scene before them left everyone frozen in place. A thick, bone-piercing chill crawled up their spines like ants. Inside the vast church, it was filled entirely with corpses. These corpses had not decomposed, but were grotesquely nailed onto each and every cross. And they were inverted crosses. One by one, they all hung suspended in the air like this, forming a path leading to where the statue of Jesus Christ should have stood at the center. The corpses hanging upside down on the crosses all had their hands clasped, eyes closed, and the corners of their mouths curled into eerie smiles. And where the statue of Jesus once stood, there was now a different plaster statue enshrined. At first glance, this plaster statue resembled Jesus, but in reality, it was completely different. There was no peace or sanctity, only an indescribable malevolence. This malevolence was not outwardly apparent. The moment everyone saw it, their minds fell into a strange state of disorientation. All negative emotions began to surge. Everything around them started to turn a deep crimson, as if they were in another world. "Don't look at it," Ningqiu Shui shouted loudly. He saw that 2 people were already showing obvious changes in their expressions, their features even becoming somewhat distorted, as if they were fighting with themselves. Fortunately, he stopped it in time. After being awakened by Ningqiu Shui's voice, the expressions of the 2 gradually returned to normal, their ferocity turning into fear. Damn it. Their backs were soaked with cold sweat. Liao Jian cursed, his hand tightly gripping the piece of human skin cut from the Jesus statue. "The key is on its chest. I'll go get it. Everyone, don't look at it. If I do anything strange later, remember to snap me out of it." The 4 people nodded. At this moment, they were also extremely anxious. However, as Ningqiu Shui got closer to that plaster statue, a silent wind blew outside the church. All the floating corpses in the air now turned their faces toward the 5 people standing in the middle. They stared at Ningqiu Shui. If looks could kill, then Ningqiu Shui would probably have been torn to pieces. Too bad, looks can't kill. At least they couldn't. Ningqiu Shui was not afraid of this grotesque scene. The process of Ningqiu Shui retrieving the key absolutely could not be interrupted, because there was an extremely strong suction force on the chest of the plaster statue. If this process were suddenly interrupted, the key that had just been pulled out might be sucked back in. Looking at Ningqiu Shui, then at the lady who had rushed to the door, everyone's legs trembled. Wen Qingya could not bear this fear any longer. She was the first to don the skin of Jesus, running toward the church window, then disappearing into the curtain of rain. Her resistance to fear in the moment she faced the lady completely shattered. The terrifying scenes she had witnessed over the past few days all flashed through her mind, merging into bizarre images. Wen Qingya felt as if she was on the verge of collapse. If she didn't flee now, standing before the black-robed lady for even one more second, She might not die, but she would surely go mad on the spot. After repeatedly confronting the terror in their hearts, humans grow stronger over time, until they fully overcome that inner fear. This is humanity's innate talent and ability to learn. But the prerequisite is, they cannot be utterly destroyed by fear before they become stronger. Seeing the first person bolt, the remaining three also felt the urge to escape surge in their minds. The breath of death crashed down like a tidal wave, engulfing the trio, suffocating them until they could barely breathe. The lady sneered, dragging her massive scythe behind her. Without even glancing at the three, she strode toward Ning Chu Shui. As she approached behind Ning Chu Shui and raised the scythe to strike, Su Xiao Xiao gritted her teeth, suddenly lunged forward, and stabbed the lady's thigh with all her might. The lady lost her balance, and the scythe in her hand missed Ning Chu Shui. She whirled around abruptly, her gaze fixed on Su Xiao Xiao. Those blood-red eyes stared so fiercely that Su Xiao Xiao nearly wet herself. Damn it! There was no denying it. Su Xiao Xiao seemed to have fully embraced her identity as a girl from the depths of her soul. Even when screaming in terror, her voice came out as a pleasant feminine tone. The lady grabbed Su Xiao Xiao by the collar with one hand, hoisting him up like a puppy. Caught like this, Su Xiao Xiao instantly felt a bone-deep chill. He wanted to pull out the coffin nail to attack the lady, but his body had gone stiff, unable to move. Seeing the lady's slender fingers about to pierce his head, Liao Jian, risking his life, charged forward, thrust his hand into Su Xiao Xiao's skirt pocket, fumbled around, and yanked out the coffin nail amid Su Xiao Xiao's shrieks, driving it into the lady. Struck by the coffin nail, the lady froze mid-motion. But the nail on her body was rusting at a visible rate. Both of them knew that this coffin nail's uses were nearly exhausted. The lady broke free quickly, as if she was going all out. A wretched howl erupted from her mouth, causing the three nearby to bleed from their noses and their ears to ring. Within just 3 to 5 breaths, the lady had shaken off the coffin nail. She then seized the handle of her massive scythe, ready to swing it and cleave everyone in two. However, the moment her hand gripped the scythe, her expression shifted. Then her entire body began to convulse violently, like a monstrous beast. The three turned to look at Ning Chu Shui. He had fully pulled the key from the chest of the plaster statue. The plaster statue no longer exuded that eerie sensation. Its head drooped, gloomy and steeped in deathly energy. The wound on its chest began to crack, spreading across its entire body. Soon, the plaster statue completely shattered. In that instant, everyone seemed to hear an extremely malevolent curse. But in that brief moment, the curse vanished. Complete. The floating corpses that the lady had nailed to crosses, hanging upside down, now gradually turned to ash, scattering into every corner of the church. The evil power vanished, and everyone felt reborn, huddled on the ground, gasping for breath. Liao Jian assessed Su Xiao Xiao beside him, his expression complex. She seemed to notice Liao Jian's gaze, her pretty face flushing red to the tips of her ears. She muttered a low curse. "What are you looking at? Never seen a cute little sister before." Liao Jian coughed once, moving a step closer, his voice tinged with strangeness. "Xiao Xiao, are you really Su Xiao?" Xiao shot him an angry glare. "Shut up!" Liao Jian looked a bit embarrassed, raising both hands and nodding slightly. "All right, I won't say." "Won't say?" Ning Chu Shui held the key, stepping forward one pace at a time, watching the black-dressed lady, who had regained her composure, sitting dazed on the ground. He took out the cross pendant the butler had given him. "Madam, this was left for me by Butler Near. But I feel you need this more than I do." The pale cheeks of the black-dressed lady no longer held the malice and ferocity of before, replaced by an indescribable regret and sorrow. She extended a withered, stick-like hand and accepted the cross pendant Ning Chu Shui offered. Staring at the pendant for a long time, the lady murmured to herself, "Even you died because of me. I told you to leave early. You said I was stubborn, but you were the stubborn one." After speaking, the lady lifted the pendant onto her palm. She kissed it, then put it around her neck. Then, step by step, she walked out of the church, heading into the curtain of rain. Immediately after, everyone watched in shock as the lady, who could normally move freely through the rain, gradually dissolved. As she faded away, the heavy rain in the manor also shrank, until finally the lady and the storm vanished together. After the rain completely disappeared, the four of them finally felt at ease. Everything was over. Without the disturbance of ghosts in the manor, when the rain ended and sunlight shone down, the once gloomy Monica Manor became much warmer. The four stepped out of the church, looked up at the sunlight, and felt a strange sense of disorientation. In truth, they had only experienced 3 days. The 4th day hadn't even ended yet, but they all felt as if an eternity had passed. Is it over? Junlu Yuan closed his eyes, spread his arms wide, and basked in the sunlight. Su Xiaoxiao and Liao Jian were also overjoyed. This was their 4th Crimson Door. They had survived. Ningqiu Shui stood behind them, his expression somewhat solemn. Although this was also the 4th Crimson Door, he had clearly handled it more easily than the last time. Ningqiu Shui could clearly feel his own growth, but he also sensed that the Crimson Doors would only become more brutal. This was only the 4th door. The 5th, 6th, and even 7th Crimson Doors. How horrifying would it be? Without a powerful ghost artifact on one's person to enhance endurance, stepping into such a Crimson Door would make survival fundamentally impossible. Of the 16 who entered this Crimson Door, only 5 ultimately survived. He held the key, searching for the main gate of the manor along with 3 others. This place had been locked. Ningqiu Shui used the key to open the gate, and the group returned to the ancient castle. If the designated day had not yet arrived, they could not leave this place early. But that no longer mattered. All threats to them behind this Crimson Door had been resolved. 2 days later, they only needed to endure hunger and wait for the bus to arrive. During that time, Ningqiu Shui took the opportunity to inspect the paintings previously displayed in the 1st floor corridor, as well as the ladies' room on the 3rd floor. After the young master's death, those paintings had been completely destroyed, leaving only a charcoal black hue upon them. And Ningqiu Shui found a photo album carefully stored by the black lady in her room. He flipped through the album, scrutinizing the old photographs within, and roughly understood what had happened in the manor back then. The lady had recorded all of this while she was still sane. The events in the manor occurred several decades ago. The lady and her husband were both advanced in age, having had a child late in life. But who could have guessed that, less than 2 years after the lady gave birth, her husband would die of illness, leaving this vast Monica Manor to her. Her husband's death was a heavy blow to the lady. It was not hard to tell from the photographs that she had previously been relatively plump. Overall, though not a beauty, she did not appear as gloomy and bizarre as she later became. In the following years, the lady grew increasingly gaunt, even spending a great deal of money to renovate the church, beginning to pray to Jesus, hoping to see her husband once more. The lady was deeply devout. Every day after lunch, she would go to the church to pray until evening, rain or shine. But when the young master was 5 or 6 years old, an accident occurred in the manor. At that time, it was raining heavily in the manor. The young master, who loved the rain, ran outside to play and was struck by a passing carriage as he dashed out of the manor. That carriage might have stopped immediately, but the rain-slicked road made braking impossible. After the lady and the butler finished their prayers, they discovered the young master had gone missing. The lady immediately dispatched all the servants in the manor to search, but by the time they found the young master in a small roadside ditch outside the manor, he had long since grown cold. The death of the young master was the final straw that crushed the lady's mind. She collapsed. From that moment on, the lady grew to loathe everything, especially the Jesus in the church. Every day she would go to the church, pointing at the plaster statue of Jesus and cursing wildly, until she died. Before her death, the lady harbored an extreme hatred for the church, and so under the influence of many factors, a terrifying existence was born, due to the resentment of the lady. Whether it was it, the black lady, or the young master, in truth, they were all manifestations of the lady's obsessions before her death. She could not let go of the only child left by her beloved husband, and so the young master appeared. She could not let go of the fact that her son had run out of the manor and died tragically on the roadside because of her own fault, and so she locked the main gate of the manor. She could not let go of the fact that she had prayed devoutly for so many years without receiving a single response from Jesus Christ. And so Jesus was driven out of the church, placed in the ancient castle, and defiled. Of course, she also could not let go of the butler who had diligently helped her manage the manor for so many years. Thus, even after transforming into a vengeful spirit, the lady never had any conflict with the butler. She even repeatedly urged him to leave this place of trouble. It wasn't that she feared the butler and the silver crucifix in his hand, but that she did not wish to harm the man who had accompanied her for decades. Now, everything had come to an end. Ning Shui gently traced her finger across the page. The photo album flipped to its final page. It was an old photograph. The lady sat by the fireplace, holding her son in her arms, a loving smile on her face. The butler, dressed in a suit, stood beside her, smiling at the camera. That was the beginning and the end of everything at the Monica Manor. The lady's final tenderness and the butler's sincere smile had both vanished in that torrential rain. Ning Shui caressed the album with her fingertips and couldn't help but sigh. What a heavy rain. 2 days later, everyone had passed through safely without incident. But during these 2 days, the four of them hadn't seen Wen Qingya. It seemed that after her emotional breakdown from sheer terror that day, she had hidden herself in some remote corner of the manor where no one could find her. Ning Shui didn't find it unusual. After all, this manor currently posed no danger, and the bus would come to pick them up this afternoon. However, Su Xiaoxiao and Liao Jian had somewhat grave expressions. When Junlu Yuan asked, Su Xiaoxiao said softly, "We encountered a similar situation when we went through the second door of the ghost dwelling. When we returned, we heard some seniors from another team say that there was an old man who had passed through 6 crimson doors. Because he saw something he shouldn't have, although he didn't die, he went mad." Wen Qingya's condition is a bit like that old man's. Ning Shui frowned and asked, "What happened to that old man afterward?" Liao Jian sneered from the side. What else could happen? He didn't return, of course. Hearing this, Ning Shui and Junlu Yuan were stunned. Didn't return? Liao Jin nodded. Yeah. When the Crimson Door mission ended, the bus came to pick them up. Everyone got on, but no matter what they said, he refused to board. So the bus left, leaving him behind in the world beyond the Crimson Door. Theoretically, the bus should only depart after picking up every passenger who has completed their mission. But for those with mental issues, perhaps they've already been abandoned by the ghost dwelling. After saying this, Liao Jian's expression turned somewhat strange. The wounds they sustained behind the Crimson Door would also be healed upon returning to the ghost dwelling. But these injuries were limited to the physical body. If it were mental damage, the ghost dwelling had never cared. In fact, if someone suffered a mental breakdown inside the Crimson Door, they would be immediately abandoned by the ghost dwelling. This was the first time Ning Shui and the other two had heard of such a thing. However, he also believed it to be true. Su Xiaoxiao and Liao Jian had no reason to deceive him about this kind of matter. By afternoon, the four of them were waiting at the entrance of the manor. When the time came exactly, a thick fog immediately rose around the manor. The familiar sound of a bus horn also came through the mist, and before long, a dilapidated bus appeared before everyone. "Get on, time to go home." Liao Jian, excited, was the first to rush onto the bus, followed by the others. They took their seats, looked around, and gazed at the manor. That place was so gloomy, yet there was still no sign of Wen Qingya. "Hey, why isn't Wen Qingya here yet? Could it be something unexpected happened?" Xiao Xiao couldn't help but wonder. Her eyes remained fixed on the distant manor gate. Everyone waited for half an hour, but still saw no trace of Wen Qingya. A sense of unease rose in their hearts. Just then, Junlu Yuan, sitting next to Ning Shui, suddenly reached his hand out the window and muttered, "Why is it starting to rain?" The other three, hearing this, noticed that the sky outside the window had somehow turned overcast, and raindrops began to fall, enveloping the entire manor. If not for the fact that they were currently on the bus, they might have thought the Crimson Door mission was still incomplete. But even so, they all felt extremely strange. Boom! The bus started to move, and the entire vehicle began to shake. The bus is starting? Junlu Yuan was surprised to feel the vibration from the bus's body. Was this bus really about to leave? But there was still one person who hadn't boarded. Could it be that something had happened to Wen Qingya? Just as everyone was speculating, the bus slowly began to roll. At that very moment, through the haze, they vaguely saw a tall, stooped woman standing in the rain within the manor, dragging the scythe that the lady had used earlier, coldly watching them leave. When they saw this figure, the 4 people on the bus were stunned, because they all clearly saw this person was Wen Qingya. Although she wasn't as tall as the lady, the rain had soaked her clothes, making them cling to her body, making her look especially slender. Combined with her posture, she resembled a smaller version of the lady. Damn it, how did Wen Qingya turn into this? Junlu Yuan's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Wen Qingya had turned into a madam? This scene was truly too bizarre. Could it be that the person outside the blood door had transformed into an NPC here? Although it sounded hard to believe, this was the Crimson Door after all. Anything was possible. The bus moved, and this was the last time everyone saw Wen Qingya. As the bus drove into the mist, everyone felt dizzy and fell asleep on the bus. When Ningqiu Shui and Junlu Yuan woke up, they had arrived outside the ghost dwelling. Bai Xiaoxiao wore a thin purple nightgown, her arms crossed over her chest, waiting for them at the door. Seeing the two return, Bai Xiaoxiao smiled. Lu Yuan, congratulations on joining the ghost dwelling. From now on, we're family. It had to be said, the ghost dwelling where Ning Shui stayed seemed cold on the surface, but was actually very humane. At least in other ghost dwellings, it was rare to find an old-timer like Bai Xiaoxiao willing to take the initiative to guide newcomers through the door for free, especially when she knew the risks were high. Junlu Yuan nodded at Bai Xiaoxiao and expressed his thanks. The 3 entered the hall. Uncle Yan was, as always, busy taking orders and farming the Crimson Door. It was rare to see him in the ghost dwelling. Meng Jun had already gone out into the world. Tianhun, that kid, had returned and was sitting on the sofa watching a movie. Seeing Ningqiu Shui come back, he smiled and greeted him, then looked at Junlu Yuan and couldn't help but frown. Brother Chu Shui, did you bring this kid back? Tell him the things to watch out for yourself. I really don't want to repeat myself again. Ningqiu Shui pointed at the wall of the ghost dwelling. I'll make a blackboard later and write some important points on it, so when newcomers arrive in the future, we won't have to waste words. In truth, there were too many things to note about the ghost dwelling. They couldn't explain everything at once. Many details could only be experienced when entering the Crimson Door. But the most basic and relatively important points could be written in concise language on the blackboard. The old-timers in the ghost dwelling were actually very lazy, too lazy to do these things. Tianhun wasn't an NPC dedicated to introducing newcomers. It was just that the others in the ghost dwelling were relatively busy and often nowhere to be seen, so this task fell to him. Ningqiu Shui took Junlu Yuan to the living quarters in the back, let him pick a comfortable dormitory room, briefly introduced the place, and then left. He understood Tianhun's awkward position. Constantly explaining all kinds of precautions to newcomers was indeed a tiring task. Returning to his own room, Ningqiu Shui felt around his body. The photo album he had found after the Crimson Door had been brought out. This proved that the photo album was indeed a ghost artifact. Ningqiu Shui felt that the rate of ghost artifacts appearing in the Crimson Door wasn't small, but finding and bringing them out required some skill. Knock, knock, knock! Just as Ningqiu Shui was flipping through the photo album, a knock suddenly sounded. He walked to the door and opened it, only to see Bai Xiaoxiao's delicate face. Do you have time? Bai Xiaoxiao got straight to the point. Ningqiu Shui nodded, stepping aside to let her in. Bai Xiaoxiao entered Ningqiu Shui's room and sat down on his sofa. There's a very special commission. I'd like to invite you to join. When? Next month, on the 3rd. How many people? If you join, there will be 3. You, me, and Uncle Yan. Upon hearing that this business involved Uncle Yan, Ningqiu Shui couldn't help but be surprised. I heard this is a big commission. Even Uncle Yan has to take notice. Bai Xiaoxiao revealed a helpless expression. That's right. But first, about this commission, it was mainly Uncle Yan's idea. I'm just the messenger. When he called me over, I really didn't want to go because this commission is too dangerous. Uncle Yan hopes you'll participate. For a special reason, he wants to step through the 9th door soon. So beforehand, he wants to take this opportunity to guide us. You performed very well before, so Uncle Yan chose you. Ning Chushui smiled faintly. He feels he'll die at the 9th door, so he wants to cultivate an early successor for ghost dwelling. After a long silence, Bai Xiaoxiao's eyes flickered slightly. That's one way to put it. Then why me and you? Isn't Mengjun going? Bai Xiaoxiao's throat moved slightly as she spoke words that stunned Ning Chushui. Mengjun wants to enter the 9th door together with Uncle Yan. Tianxun is still too young. Uncle Yan can't bear to take him. Big beard, you understand. Seeing Ning Chushui's silence, Bai Xiaoxiao stood up and spoke softly. I know you have many questions, so do I. Rest well today. Tomorrow we'll leave ghost dwelling, exit the mist world, and meet Uncle Yan outside. Ning Chushui nodded. All right. After Bai Xiaoxiao left, he sat on the bed, pondering what she had just said. Everything happened too suddenly. First, Uncle Yan suddenly wanted to enter the 9th door, and Meng Jun would go too. Then he wanted to lead him and Bai Xiaoxiao on a major commission, cultivating successors. These consecutive events made Ning Chushui see one possibility, that Uncle Yan's trip this time might be related to Uncle Mang's death. He had many doubts in his heart, but tonight he could only set them aside, rest well, and wait until tomorrow. Perhaps Uncle Yan would give him some answers. The next morning, Ning Chushui woke up early and had breakfast. Liu Chengfeng was acting strangely. Ever since returning to his room, there had been no news from him. Ning Chushui had a way to contact him, but when he sent messages, Liu Chengfeng didn't read them, as if he was very busy. Ning Chushui looked at the simple meal on the table and began to miss the days when Liu Chengfeng was at ghost dwelling. Tianxun sighed. I don't know when Big Beard will be back. I really want to drink his kanji. Ghost dwelling provided them with food every day, but those meals were quite ordinary. Bai Xiaoxiao also knew how to cook, but her skills could only be described as not bad, far inferior to Liu Chengfeng's. After eating, Bai Xiaoxiao gave Tianxun a few instructions, then left with Ning Chushui. Shui boarded the bus and left the mist world. The moment he stepped out of the mist world, Ning Chushui received a message on his phone. It was from Field Mouse. Don't go home. You're being watched. I've arranged a small apartment for you in the Guanjiang district. Stay there for now. Seeing this message, Ning Chushui furrowed his brow. He was being watched again. It hadn't been long since the assassination attempt at his home. Before his death, the leader of the Half-Mountain Demon organization, Yun Du, had revealed another organization within the Mist World that was connected to Luo Shengmen. Moreover, when mentioning the death of Uncle Mang, he had chosen to commit suicide. Red Bean had also warned Ning Chushui not to disclose that he had received the mysterious letter, or he would be assassinated. There was a very secretive group of killers who specialized in hunting down such people. So had Uncle Mang received the mysterious letter? Was that secret organization Luo Shengmen? Ning Chushui pondered for a moment, then sent a message to Field Mouse, asking him to investigate these people. Field Mouse replied that he was already looking into it and told him to rest assured. He put away his phone. Bai Xiaoxiao led Ning Chushui to her villa, where Uncle Yan had been waiting for a long time. Meng Jun was also there. Uncle Yan, I've brought the person here. Bai Xiaoxiao stretched, her tone clipped, giving off the vibe of a human trafficker. Liang Yan looked at Ning Chushui, nodded slightly, and invited him into the villa. I can't guarantee your safety at the next door. Liang Yan got straight to the point, without any pretense. So I won't force you to join us. He paused, then looked at the calm Ning Chushui and continued. But you're a clear-headed and sharp person. You must understand that once you enter the ghost dwelling, there's no escape. The 7th door is only a matter of time. Ning Chushui didn't interrupt, only a flicker passing through his eyes. The 7th door. Liang Yan intended to lead them into the 7th door, the door that almost everyone who entered died from. Why? Seeing that Liang Yan wasn't continuing, Ning Chushui asked his first question. Liang Yan answered directly, for a friend. Uncle Mang? Yes. Were you two very close? Bound by life and death? Ning Chu Shui was silent for a long time. You and Meng Jun want to avenge Uncle Mang? Hearing this, Liang Yan's perpetually stern face twisted into a strange smile. Surprised? Ning Chu Shui met Liang Yan's gaze, not hiding his thoughts. I am indeed surprised. I never expected that beneath your calm exterior there was such a mad soul. Liang Yan said, I'm different from you kids. I'm a man of the underworld. All my life, I've lived for debts of gratitude and vengeance. I don't give a damn about that cursed ninth door, and I don't care how long I have left to live. I only care about the people. They killed Mang, so I want to kill them. To me, it's that simple. Ning Chu Shui turned to look at Meng Jun. And him? Did you ask him? Meng Jun said coldly, I owe Mang a life. I have to pay it back to him. Ning Chu Shui narrowed his eyes. You're also a wanderer of the underworld? Meng Jun remained silent for a long time. The other three also stayed silent for a long time. Finally, Ning Chu Shui broke this prolonged silence. It's clear that Uncle Mang had immense charisma. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people around him willing to die for him. Then, I want to know the truth. The truth about Uncle Mang. You all must know a lot. Tell me and I'll join you. Hearing Ning Chu Shui's words, Liang Yan shook his head. It's too chaotic. Don't get involved. There's no need. Ning Chu Shui stared into his eyes and suddenly asked, Tell me, when Uncle Mang was alive, did he receive any letters with no sender's name? Hearing this, all three were startled, looking at Ning Chu Shui with shocked expressions. Bai Xiaoxiao gently covered her lips, her eyes shimmering. Chu Shui, you? Seeing everyone's expressions, Ning Chu Shui immediately knew his guess was correct. Mang had received that mysterious letter, just like him. It seemed he wasn't the only one receiving those letters with unknown senders, whether it was him, Red Bean, or Mang. Where did these letters come from? What was their purpose? Ning Chu Shui's mind was filled with questions. It seems my guess wasn't wrong. Uncle Mang indeed received that mysterious letter with no sender. All three looked at him with strange expressions, their eyes carrying a hint of scrutiny. How do you know about this? Liang Yan's voice carried a subtle, barely noticeable murderous intent. Ning Chu Shui noticed it but wasn't concerned. As long as there were no guns, there weren't many people in this world who could face him head-on. Perhaps they had trained in martial arts, practiced grappling skills, but these were useless against Ning Chu Shui. Moreover, Ning Chu Shui understood why their attitudes had changed so drastically. I also received a letter, he said calmly. Liang Yan stared at Ning Chu Shui, as if assessing whether his words were true. Ning Chu Shui took out an old, worn letter from his person and handed it to Liang Yan. Liang Yan took the letter and opened it, seeing a few words bearing the marks of time. Beware of the iris flower. The letter could be forged, but some details were very hard to fake. A careful observation of the letter could distinguish truth from falsehood. Liang Yan looked at the letter for a long time. After confirming it wasn't fake, he returned it to Ning Chu Shui. No wonder, he looked at Ning Chu Shui and murmured, All right, I believe you. Just as you guessed, Mang was also a recipient of the mysterious letter. Ning Chu Shui's eyes flickered, and he pressed on. Is Uncle Mang's death related to the letter he received? Liang Yan neither denied nor admitted it. Perhaps. I've seen the contents of Mang's earlier letters. They were some warnings related to the Crimson Door. Except for the last one. Ning Chu Shui asked, The last letter? Liang Yan said, The last letter Mang received while alive was on the night before he entered the Crimson Door. He didn't let me see it. He only told me he wouldn't be coming back. Upon hearing this, Ning Chu Shui's expression shifted slightly. So, Uncle Mang knew he was going to die? Liang Yan's voice finally wavered with agitation. He exclaimed, Knew he was going to die? How could he possibly know he was going to die? Matters of the future are all things that haven't happened yet, countless possibilities, impossible to foresee. Seeing Liang Yan's agitated state, Ning Chu Shui countered, If he didn't know he was going to die, why did he seek me out and Sister Bai to arrange his final affairs? Liang Yan was suddenly stunned. A vein bulged on his forehead, but he couldn't refute it. I know what you're trying to say, but he's not like that. Ning Chu Shui raised the letter in his hand. He had this, which would give him crucial reminders. But have you considered that the final letter was different from the ones before? As Liang Yan listened to Ningqiu Shui, for some reason, his heart suddenly slowed its beat. "What are you talking about?" Ningqiu Shui said calmly. "You know what I'm talking about. Have you asked Uncle Mang? Asked him about the contents of that letter? I'm guessing he didn't tell you." Hearing this, Liang Yan clenched his fists. Why wouldn't he tell you? Simply because he couldn't tell you, or he wasn't able to. The letters he received before were all meant to save him, and the purpose of saving him was perhaps to have him die at a critical moment. Of course, this is just my judgment. After all, in the ghost dwelling, the longer people live, the more they fear death. It's not something a single letter can control. The so-called care leads to confusion. Is there a possibility that Uncle Mang isn't dead? He only told you he wouldn't return, but perhaps he had some method, or the letter told him a way, allowing him to remain in the world behind the crimson door. As an outsider, Ningqiu Shui laid out his entire train of thought before everyone. Setting aside subjective factors, I personally lean toward the latter hypothesis. Uncle Mang may not be dead, merely staying in the world behind the crimson door by some means. This isn't impossible. In the previous crimson door, I encountered a guest trapped in the world behind it. It's just that her case was quite special. She lost her mind, was assimilated into a monster by the lingering resentment of the NPCs at the mission site, and was subsequently abandoned by the ghost dwelling. You are all veterans of the ghost dwelling. You should understand this better than I do, right? After Ningqiu Shui finished speaking, Bai Xiaoxiao secretly glanced at the silent Liang Yan. Earlier, they had been influenced by the news of Uncle Mang's death, compounded by Liang Yan's eagerness for revenge, which prevented everyone from thinking rationally. Now, reminded by Ningqiu Shui, they realized that perhaps this wasn't impossible. Although it sounded hard to believe, a man like Mang dying inexplicably in a novice crimson door was also nearly impossible. Uncle Mang isn't the only one who received the mysterious letter. As far as I know, there's another group of people. Moreover, these people are all being hunted by a mysterious organization from the outside. That's why I think these mysterious letters from an unknown source must be connected to something extremely important. Thinking like that, Uncle Mang couldn't have died in an ordinary crimson door. Rather than believing he died there, why not believe he's trapped inside the crimson door for some critical reason? I know what I just said has shocked you greatly, but you're all deeply involved in this. Some matters are too influenced by subjective will, and you can't see clearly. There's no need to rush to answer or refute me. You have plenty of time to consider the possibility I've raised. Also, regarding the next mission, I can go with you. After a moment of thought, Liang Yan seemed to have calmed down. Ningqiu Shui's words were like a rope beside a cliff, pulling him back. I'll think these matters over on my own. First, let's talk about the next mission. Our next mission is the 7th Crimson Door. This type of Crimson Door typically has no one posting rescue missions, because almost no one accepts them. The mortality rate is too high. So for the 7th or even 8th Crimson Door, most missions are group missions. The person posting the mission can summon more than 3 people, but the total number entering the Crimson Door cannot exceed 20. Those summoned are mostly capable and courageous individuals who want to pass through the 7th door. Everyone's goal is the same: rely on each other's luck and abilities to survive. Of course, the 7th Crimson Door often uses some deceptive advertisements to lure fools and newcomers. These people are usually not too many, around 3 to 5. Their main purpose is to use their lives to probe the death rules. When Liang Yan said these words, he showed no trace of guilt. A person too compassionate couldn't survive to the 9th Crimson Door. Others did evil, but he was also a beneficiary, so he chose silence. This was a cruel silence, also a cunning silence. As Liang Yan had said, he was neither a good person nor a bad person. He was a man of the underworld, spending his life making 2 or 3 good friends, living with clear debts of gratitude and vengeance. Moreover, no matter how many ghost artifacts you have, when entering the 7th Crimson Door and beyond, you can only bring 1. And a ghost artifact only works once inside the Crimson Door. Liang Yan said all this calmly, and Ning Shui's expression shifted slightly. Just hearing that one sentence, he could feel the terror of the seventh crimson door. Higher difficulty, lower margin for error. No wonder the mortality rate for the seventh crimson door was so high. If you want to go, I can give you the mission and hints for the seventh door right now. Ning Shui lowered his head in thought. Bai Xiao and Meng Jun stood by, not disturbing him. This was Ning Shui's decision. They had no right to interfere, nor did they want to influence him. Count me in. The world is vast. I want to take a quick look. After a moment, Ning Shui suddenly smiled. Dying at the seventh door is certainly better than dying at the fourth. His crimson door had only reached the fourth, and it would take a few more months to get there. Now, with a chance to see the seventh crimson door, an ordinary person might try to flee as far as possible, but Ning Shui felt he had to go quickly. He sensed that the story of the seventh crimson door would surely be fascinating. Even if he died at the seventh door, he could still witness the grander scenery beyond it. Hearing Ning Shui's words, a flicker passed through Liang Yan's eyes, and he even smiled a smile. Ning Shui had never seen before. How intriguing. In some ways, you're very much like Mang. If you had come a few years earlier, you might have become good friends with him. Liang Yan seemed regretful as he clapped his hands. Meng Jun immediately flipped open a dossier and handed it to Ning Shui. I've prepared detailed materials for you. Look them over yourself. If you have any questions, ask now. Ning Shui took the dossier and examined it seriously. In truth, not much information was recorded in these documents. A single photo, some handwritten notes. Still, compared to the previous task he had received from Feng, it was far more detailed. Task 1. Protect the 4 target individuals from being killed. Task 2. Survive for 5 days until the bus arrives. Note, while the targets remain alive, its power is sealed. Each time one dies, it releases a portion of the seal. Reminder 1. Its hatred value will accumulate based on your actions. Reminder 2. It will not kill anyone else until all targets are dead. Reminder 3. After all targets are killed, it will hunt based on the level of hatred. Protection targets, Guangguan, Wangzhen, Youwen, photos, and detailed information. Is this the task for the 7th door? Ning Shui frowned after reading the contents. At first glance, this task didn't seem difficult. Moreover, they even had a safe escape route. As long as the protected targets didn't all die, the ghosts behind this door wouldn't attack them, so they could confidently and boldly take a gamble. Don't underestimate the danger of this task. Liang Yan's voice was very serious. Including my own crimson door, I've experienced the 7th door 3 times. Each time, I barely escaped with my life. Twice, if not for exceptionally strong individuals leading the group, I would have died countless times. The level of danger is certainly not as simple as it appears. Anyone who underestimates the difficulty of this door will pay a heavy price. Ning Shui nodded slightly. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Is this all the material there is? Liang Yan replied, Yes, this is all we have for now. To obtain more detailed information, we'll have to learn from the NPCs inside the Crimson Door. Ning Shui returned all the documents to Meng Jun, but he didn't take them. Keep them. Everything has been backed up. Ning Shui heard this and put them away. One last question. Why do you want to reach the 9th door early? Is it because you've already found the killer? Facing Ning Shui's question, Liang Yan was silent for a moment, as if weighing whether to tell him. We found the person who entered the door with Mang earlier and vanished mysteriously after coming out. This person hitched a ride with an acquaintance, intending to go straight to the 9th door to take a look. I want to find him and clarify the situation back then. Ning Shui fell into thought. Seeing this, Liang Yan gave a faint smile. You want to persuade me too? Ning Shui shook his head. Some things aren't suitable to discuss now. If we can survive after entering the door early next month, I'll tell you some information. Then you can decide whether to enter the 9th door early. Liang Yan nodded lightly. Very well. Bai Xiao beside them raised her phone and chuckled. How about we all have dinner together tonight? Who knows, this might be our last meal. Bai Xiao did not shy away from death. The existence of the Crimson Door had given her a purpose in life. She always cherished every day she spent outside the mist world. Sometimes, even Ningqiu Shui felt he didn't live as thoroughly as Bai Xiaoxiao. The four of them dined together, and afterward, Liang Yan and Meng Jun excused themselves and left. Bai Xiaoxiao had drunk a bit of wine and wanted Ningqiu Shui to take a walk with her. They arrived at an overpass, watching the traffic flow like water below. A rare look of confusion appeared in Bai Xiaoxiao's eyes. Chu Shui, what do you think is the meaning of the Crimson Door's existence? To make so many of us step into this strange world, to struggle for survival and fear, yet not kill us outright. Ningqiu Shui also stared at the cars beneath the overpass, his expression softening considerably. I'm very curious about that question too. When I first received the letter, I always felt someone was behind all this, but later I discovered I wasn't the only one who got the letter. Things have gone far beyond my expectations. Big Beard was right. There's probably no one in this world capable of pulling this off. Bai Xiaoxiao tilted her head back and took a swig of beer. She rarely drank this cheap kind of liquor. Her eyes gradually grew hazy, her small face flushed with an alluring redness. Chu Shui, at the end of the mist world, will we be able to meet our lost loved ones again? Bai Xiaoxiao's voice carried a hint of hesitation. Unlike her usual mature demeanor, like a little girl walking with an adult, curious about everything and asking the grown-up for answers. In truth, Ningqiu Shui didn't know the answer, and Bai Xiaoxiao knew he didn't. But she just wanted to talk. After Shanji passed away, she couldn't even find anyone to talk to. Though she had a very good relationship with Liang Yan and Meng Jun, that bond was more like comrades. You could always trust them to watch your back. I gave them to you, but you can't confide in them. However, even without knowing the answer, Ningqiu Shui still replied to her question. Perhaps it's possible. At least until now, the contents of those letters have never deceived me. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxiao smiled happily. Her eyes curved like a crescent moon. This was the first time Ningqiu Shui had seen her laugh so carefreely, but he had to admit, under the dim light, Bai Xiaoxiao exuded an indescribable charm. It was a beauty that was real and tangible, but Ningqiu Shui only quietly appreciated it. This wasn't the first time he had been moved by a woman. It was just that compared to women, he always cared more about his own life. Therefore, Ningqiu Shui had never flirted with women outside. He had enough money to live a dissolute life, but he was accustomed to appreciating the beauty of the opposite sex from a safe distance. Hey, what are you looking at? Bai Xiaoxiao was a bit bold, reaching out to touch Ningqiu Shui's face, wrinkling her nose. What am I looking at? Ningqiu Shui snapped back to reality, instinctively stepping back half a step. Bai Xiaoxiao giggled, and when she laughed, she couldn't help covering her mouth with her hand, unconsciously revealing a shy demeanor. Your eyes are like a visitor to a zoo, seeing a dangerous animal, feeling curious but not wanting to get close, afraid of running into trouble. Ningqiu Shui didn't hide it. That's right. Exactly that. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxiao's smile froze, then she glared at him. What, am I going to eat you? It's not that serious, just a professional habit. I can't get too close to women. Bai Xiaoxiao frowned, muttering, what kind of damn profession requires avoiding women? Could it be a gigolo? Ningqiu Shui was a bit silent. Hey, I heard that. Bai Xiaoxiao coughed awkwardly, saying, just kidding, Chu Shui. What do you do for a living? Veterinarian. Veterinarian? Why would a veterinarian need to avoid women? Ningqiu Shui was silent for a moment, then explained. It's a bit complicated. If I get the chance, I'll tell you later. He didn't explain clearly, and Bai Xiaoxiao didn't continue asking. Everyone has their own secrets. Even with the closest people, there's no need to trace the origins, let alone when they were just friends. Actually, if at the end of the mist world I could meet my deceased loved ones again, that would be good. Counting carefully, there are still many people I want to see. Bai Xiaoxiao held the wine bottle tightly in one hand, fiddling with her slender fingers with the other, half drunk and half sober, speaking seriously. I'm only 26 this year. Although I'm already considered an old maid past marriageable age, in terms of human lifespan, I'm still very young. A young girl like me should be cherished by her family, not be alone like this. Why did everyone around me leave so early? Bai Xiaoxiao looked at Ning Shui and smiled, then burst into tears. Did I do something wrong? Ning Shui wiped her tears, but didn't know how to comfort Bai Xiaoxiao. Because he was even worse off than Bai Xiaoxiao. He was originally an abandoned orphan. At the age of 11, he met an agent on the run and happened to save her life. That agent's code name was Shroud. He was also Ning Shui's Shifu. She was the one who brought Ning Shui into the trade, teaching him various skills, yet she died from a cerebral hemorrhage during his first year in the chaotic border region. That was the first time Ning Shui realized how fragile human life could be. It turned out that knives and guns weren't the only things that could take a life. From that moment on, Ning Shui once again felt abandoned. God had played a cruel joke on him, giving him the most precious gift, only to take it away with his own hands. When his Shifu passed away, Ning Shui didn't even have time to say goodbye to her. All the promises, oaths, and commitments of the past were cremated along with his Shifu's body. Sorry, it's been a while since I talked. Bai Xiaoxiao quickly regained her composure, taking a deep breath. Actually, I only heard these things from Lu Yuan the other day, and it got me thinking. No one can be sure they'll collect enough fragments to reach the end of the Mist World. Besides, I'm not as capable as Uncle Yan and Uncle Mang. Even they couldn't do it, so how could I possibly manage? Ning Shui gently tapped Bai Xiaoxiao's wine bottle, pulling her back to reality from her pessimistic thoughts. Then, meeting her slightly dazed gaze, he smiled. My Shifu once told me, there are no roads in this world. Roads are made when people walk them. I also want to reach the end of the Mist World. How about we go together? Looking at the smile on Ning Shui's face, Bai Xiaoxiao unconsciously nodded slightly, as if forgetting the disheartening words she had just spoken. All right. Although she held little hope of surviving the seventh Crimson Door, at this moment she was genuinely moved by Ning Shui's words. After all, isn't living about holding on to hope? A night passed. The next morning, Ning Shui woke up on the comfortable large bed and went into the bathroom to wash up. He had drunk a bit of wine last night, not much, and had returned to the Xiang villa half sober with Bai Xiaoxiao, after which each had washed up and gone to sleep. Ning Shui rarely spent the night at someone else's house. It wasn't safe. However, the Xiang villa had tight security with 24/7 guards, so he could rest comfortably. The sound of washing woke Bai Xiaoxiao upstairs. She stepped out barefoot, rubbing her disheveled hair, and said to Ning Shui with a smile, "Up so early?" Ning Shui looked at Bai Xiaoxiao in the mirror and said, "I have some personal matters to attend to." "Not staying for lunch before you go?" "Can't. Time waits for no one." Seeing him like this, Bai Xiaoxiao didn't insist on keeping him. She saw him out of the villa and watched him get into the car and drive away. After leaving the Xiang villa, Ning Shui called Field Mouse. "Hello. Why did you only answer now? Drank with a girl last night, talked about life. Haha, did you break your vow? She wasn't drunk, and neither was I. Seems like having a high tolerance isn't always a good thing. It's just too heavy a burden." "All right." Field Mouse coughed once. "Last time you asked me to find Red Bean, I managed to dig up some information. Through a special signal network, I traced this person's last known location to a small internet cafe at the foot of Longhu Mountain, where they used a computer to access the network. Moreover, recently, the number of times Red Bean has logged in at nearby internet cafes has exceeded 3 times, with the first and third instances about half a month apart." Ning Shui narrowed his eyes. "You mean that person named Red Bean lives near Longhu Mountain?" Field Mouse replied. "Theoretically, that seems to be the case. Also, you'd better abandon your old residence. Bai Hao told me he spotted a sniper on the rooftop of the building across the street. We've only partially identified those assassins. They all come from different underground organizations and seem to be taking personal contracts. None of those underground organizations have any bounty notices related to you." Hearing the last sentence, Ning Shui's gaze sharpened instantly. Was this related to Luo Sheng men again? If so, why were they hunting down those who received the letters? What did others receiving the letters have to do with them? From Bai Xiaoxiao's earlier introduction, Ningqiu Shui knew that Luo Sheng Men was the top ghost dwelling in the mist world. But different ghost dwellings in the mist world had no clear conflicts of interest. Their actions were truly abnormal. Ningqiu Shui didn't rush to find an answer. He knew that the more he hurried, the easier it would be to fall into the enemy's trap. For now, he still needed to find Red Bean first, understand the situation better, and simultaneously find a way to survive the 7th Crimson Door. "I've really troubled you lately," Field Mouse chuckled. "No problem. This is what I do. Nothing else. I'm hanging up." "All right, I'll contact you later." After hanging up, Ningqiu Shui thought it over and decided not to return to his old residence to deal with those assassins. It wasn't that he doubted his own abilities, but he believed those assassins might not provide him with useful information, and instead, it would be easy to alert the enemy. Time passed quickly, and October arrived in the blink of an eye. Ningqiu Shui and the others returned to the ghost dwelling via the mist bus. Everyone in the ghost dwelling was present, including Lu Cheng Feng, who had been absent for a long time, now back at the ghost dwelling. The moment he saw Ningqiu Shui, his eyes went wide, and he said excitedly, "Heavens, Qiu Shui, I'm not one to talk, but why are you following them to watch the excitement? That's the 7th Crimson Door, and you haven't even reached the 4th gate." "That's true, but I want to go see," Ningqiu Shui said. "I know you're worried about my safety, but everyone has their own path. You don't need to persuade me too much." As soon as he stepped through the door, he practically cut off Lu Chengfeng's words. Lu Chengfeng had prepared a whole string of advice, but when he saw Ningqiu Shui's expression, it all turned into a single sigh. Lu Chengfeng knew he couldn't stop Ningqiu Shui. The more clear-headed people were, the more carefully they thought through their choices. This also meant they were less easily swayed by others. "Highs!" He let out a sigh. "Fine, your business is your own. I won't interfere anymore. I really don't get what you people are thinking. Clearly you could still live well for a while longer, yet you're rushing to court death." No one commented on Lu Chengfeng's thoughts. No one was right or wrong, it was simply a difference in choices. "It's not certain we won't make it back alive. Don't be too pessimistic." Ningqiu Shui comforted Lu Chengfeng. The latter snorted and said nothing more. Even back when they were inside the Crimson Door, Lu Chengfeng had felt that Ningqiu Shui was someone exceptionally skilled at taking risks and seizing opportunities. This was both a strength and a weakness. "Anything else you need help with?" Lu Chengfeng asked, then added, "Out there, I mean." Ningqiu Shui smiled and sat down beside the sofa. "I usually operate alone outside. There's nothing to instruct." Tianxin sat by the stove, gnawing on a roasted corn that Lu Chengfeng had handed him, his expression somewhat dazed. "Hey, you two absolutely have to come back alive. Our ghost dwelling already doesn't have many people. With you two gone this time, this place will feel even emptier." Liang Yan stood at the top of the stairs. He didn't say he would protect everyone, only made a solemn promise. "We will do our best to survive." After speaking, he shot a glance at Ningqiu Shui and Bai Xiao, and the three of them headed up the stairs together. Once they reached the 3rd floor, the contract they had previously signed with the other ghost dwelling took effect, and the Crimson Door displayed this mission's details. Everyone skimmed through it. It was no different from what they already knew. Only this time, the Crimson Door had provided a clear description of the abilities. Its sealed abilities are hands, feet, eyes, mouth. Hands. Once released, it will steal one person's ghost artifact. Cooldown 1 day. Feet. Once released, it can teleport once within 100 meters. Cooldown 1 hour. Eyes. Once released every hour, it will see the exact location of its vengeful target ahead. Mouth. Once released, it will mimic everyone's voices. Cooldown 1 hour. When the time came, the blood-red wooden door was pushed open, and everyone before it lost consciousness. When all three woke up, they found themselves in an unfamiliar city. Fortunately, they hadn't been separated. Watching the bustling crowd pass by, all three were somewhat disoriented, but they quickly regained their composure. They were in a roadside cafe within a busy commercial district. There were a total of 19 customers on the 1st floor of this cafe. Needless to say, these people were the ghost guests participating in this Crimson Door mission. This time, the Crimson Door hadn't separated the three of them, but had arranged for them to sit at the same table, drinking hot coffee. 19 people, as ruthless as ever. Liang Yan carefully surveyed the first floor, his tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. Ning Chu Shui asked curiously, and Liang Yan explained, "Remember the 1/10th rule of the Crimson Door? Because of this rule, the number of ghost guests that the Crimson Door arranges to enter rarely exceeds 20 people. This means the rule will only protect one lucky person." Ning Chu Shui was startled, then he looked around, memorizing everyone's faces. Since a person's face has more points to remember, memorizing a face is much easier than memorizing a name. "Uncle Yan, is there any possibility that a ghost was born and has already infiltrated us?" Bai Xiaoxiao asked quietly. She couldn't help but worry, because in Ning Chu Shui's second Crimson Door, Kivu Thon, there had been such a precedent. The headless monk had infiltrated them from the very beginning and disguised himself perfectly. If it had been a weak ghost back then, it would have eventually become a nearly unsolvable fatal blow. Lang Yan said, "This possibility cannot be ruled out, but the probability is very small." Pausing for a moment, he looked at Ning Chu Shui. Clearly, he also knew what Ning Chu Shui had experienced in his second Crimson Door. "Based on the experience of some predecessors, and my personal experience, the ghost guests of the seventh door usually enter the Crimson Door early. During this time, the ghost is basically unable to act. This can also be considered a favor from the Crimson Door, giving us precious time to prepare." Hearing Uncle Yan's explanation, Bai Xiaoxiao felt a bit more at ease. "Clap, clap!" Just as Liang Yan finished speaking, a tall, thin woman in the crowd stood up, wearing sunglasses around her neck, and clapped her hands towards everyone, drawing their attention. This woman's name was Mu Yunying, and she was the proposer of this Crimson Door. "Everyone, are we all here? I'll take attendance." Since she was the contract proposer, Mu Yunying had detailed basic information on everyone. Of course, everyone also had her information. Sun Feng Yan. Present. After Mu Yunying finished taking attendance, she smiled at everyone. "Good, it seems everyone is here. Everyone, follow me to a quieter place. We can briefly discuss the specific tasks and assign work for this mission." A newcomer in the crowd asked, "So, aren't we going to find the target characters first? If the ghost appears at this moment, won't they die?" Mu Yunying smiled and said, "I understand your concern. Among you, there must be some who are entering the seventh Crimson Door for the first time and don't understand the hidden rules of this Crimson Door well. I'll briefly explain. Upon entering the seventh Crimson Door, the door gives us 1 day to prepare, so the ghost cannot act on the first day. This period of time is enough for us to prepare thoroughly. Any other questions?" The newcomer who had just asked the question immediately fell silent. They were the fools who had been tricked into entering, as Liang Yan had said. Usually, powerful players would promise them that they would do their best. The strength to keep them safe inside this Crimson Door. In truth, anyone with a shred of common sense should have investigated for themselves just how dangerous the seventh Crimson Door is. If they can't even protect themselves, how could they possibly protect anyone else? Therefore, the newcomers who dare to enter this door are either overconfident or utterly foolish from start to finish. Actually, I don't think we should bring stupid newcomers into this door. They'll only cause trouble. Bai Xiaoxiao muttered, walking between the two. Liang Yan and Ning Chu Shui remained silent. The latter's gaze continuously swept across the crowd, sizing up the leading woman. Meanwhile, Liang Yan was watching the newcomer who had just asked the question. That newcomer was named Feng Wanming, an ordinary man who was hard to pick out in a crowd. He looked frightened and clueless, clearly tricked into this Crimson Door by some bastard. The crowd quickly arrived at a relatively remote construction site within the city. As they walked, the sunlight was blocked by dark clouds drifting toward them from afar, turning the sky gloomy. Moreover, judging by the color and thickness of the clouds, a heavy rain seemed imminent. After experiencing the ancient mansion and the Crimson Door of the Black Dress Lady, Ning Chu Shui now harbored a certain dread of rain. He always felt that as long as there was even a hint of rain, something terrible would happen. All right, let me briefly explain my plan to everyone. We have a total of 19 people and need to protect 4 targets. Therefore, will split into 4 groups. Group 3 will have 5 people, and the last group will have 4. Everyone will operate in their groups, each protecting one target. This is my initial plan. If you have any questions, speak up now, and we'll discuss and resolve them on the spot. It had to be said, as someone who had reached the 7th door through sheer strength, Mu Yunying demonstrated excellent leadership from the start. And her straightforward attitude quickly earned everyone's trust. I have a question. Why don't we gather these 4 people in one place to protect them? Everyone stays together. With so many ghost artifacts on hand, even if each person uses one, we could hold out for a long time. Splitting up, isn't that less safe? A burly man in the crowd voiced his opinion. Mu Yunying explained calmly, I considered this idea before but abandoned it. The reason is that we don't know if the ghost has a limit on killing its targets. But if there's no limit, the moment we slip up, it could kill all 4 targets in a very short time. And once it kills these 4 targets, as you all know, it will directly awaken 4 very terrifying skills. Then it will hunt us down with those 4 skills. I can tell you with certainty that, given our current situation, each of us holding only 1 ghost artifact that can be used once this ghost releases all its seals too early, the survival rate for the 18 of us will be... We are nearly at 0. Mu Yunying had made it very clear. The people here might include fools, but none were intellectually deficient. Everyone understood. This was truly a risk assessment problem. In theory, placing those 4 individuals together would certainly provide better protection. After all, that way, they would have 19 pairs of eyes watching and 19 ghost artifacts at their disposal. But the risk was that either no problem would arise, or a massive one would. They would have no chance to remedy the situation. As for splitting the 4 target individuals apart, dispersing them across the city, the advantage was that after the ghost killed 1 target, it would take a significant amount of time to reach the second. At the same time, after 1 target died, they would still have a chance to save the others. I agree with her viewpoint. Seeing everyone fall silent, Liang Yan stood up. Our mission is essentially to buy time, to drag things out until the end of the 5th day when the bus arrives. As Mu Yunying said, if we split the 4 target individuals apart, we'll gain precious time to work with. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chu Shuai also spoke up. I also agree with group protection. Centralized protection in one place is too risky. We can't bear that burden. Everyone began to vote. Some continued to support placing the 4 together for focused protection, while others agreed to split them up for separate protection. But in the end, the minority had to submit to the majority, and everyone started forming groups, preparing to split up and protect the target individuals. Boom! Just as they finished grouping, a loud clap of thunder rang out overhead, the sound so intense it left everyone dazed. Hurry up, it's going to rain, someone urged. Then, everyone divided into groups. Ningqiu Shuai's 3-person group gained 1 more member, and that person was Feng Wanming, the man who had seemed so frightened earlier. Because of the previous newcomer's question, he appeared to have been ostracized. Most of the people who had stepped through this door were seasoned veterans. Since the ghost wouldn't attack them until all the protected targets were killed, they didn't need these foolish newcomers to help them test things. On the contrary, they could cause trouble due to their impulsiveness and fear. No one wanted to become the group's sinner. In the end, Liang Yan spoke up, and Feng Wanming reluctantly found a shelter. Drip, drip. After everyone finished grouping, they felt raindrops falling on their heads and simultaneously looked up at the black clouds in the sky. It had started to rain. All right, now that it's raining, let's find some shelter first. Everyone, exchange contact information. Normally, try not to contact each other. Only send messages when there's a problem. Mu Yunying quickly led everyone to an abandoned building in the industrial zone that wasn't completely destroyed. Everyone exchanged contact information, and then the mission targets were distributed among the 4 groups. Of course, for the sake of absolute fairness, she let the 3 people in the other group choose first. Earlier, her group would pick the remaining people. A very capable leader. She plays this game too smoothly. Everyone clearly hasn't received any tangible benefits, yet some have already started to feel grateful to her, even regarding her as the beacon of the entire group. Bai Xiaoxiao leaned against Ningqiu Shui, observing the expressions of the others in the building. Her delicate brows furrowed with a hint of worry. This was definitely not a good sign. The target assigned to Ningqiu Shui's group to protect was named Gei Kai, a relatively sturdy man. The Crimson Door had provided them with fairly simple information about these 4 NPCs. They would only be able to learn the specific details after meeting Gei Kai. Looking on the bright side, at least we have Gei Kai's phone number. If the Crimson Door hadn't given us this, we'd have to go through a lot of trouble just to find him. Bai Xiaoxiao raised her phone, her lazy tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. She tried to make a call, but it didn't go through. It wasn't a problem on the other end. Rather, after the rain started, there was no signal here. "Let's go upstairs," Ningqiu Shui said. The other teams were facing the same issue. Everyone tacitly agreed to head up to the 3rd floor. This was an old-style building, almost entirely made of raw cement inside, poorly finished. The floor, aside from rubble and gravel, was covered in a thick layer of dust. After reaching the top floor, Bai Xiaoxiao found an empty room. Seeing that her phone had signal, she began making calls. The other 3 members of the group stood nearby, listening. Ningqiu Shui took the opportunity to walk over to the window, gazing out at the dark expanse beyond. The rain outside was growing heavier, and he seemed to notice something amiss within it. His expression shifted slightly, and his entire body leaned toward the window. Just then, Bai Xiaoxiao instinctively grabbed Ningqiu Shui's wrist with her other hand. The latter turned his head. When their eyes met, Ningqiu Shui gently shook his head, signaling that he was fine. He just wanted to look outside. Bai Xiaoxiao let go. Liang Yan beside her naturally noticed the situation quickly and immediately walked over to Ningqiu Shui's side, joining him in looking outward. "What's wrong, Qiu Shui?" he asked. Ningqiu Shui raised his hand and pointed toward the distant curtain of rain. Following the direction of his finger, Liang Yan looked over, and his body trembled slightly. He saw, beside a brightly lit residential area far away, a bizarre black figure standing there. His posture was eerie, both arms stretched forcefully upward, his head tilted back high, doing something unknown. In this hazy world shrouded by dark clouds and rain, occasional passers-by walked by, yet they seemed completely unable to see him. He just stood there in the rain, motionless, like a statue. But both of them knew clearly in their hearts, in a place like this, there couldn't possibly be a statue.